The first gunshot shattered the diner window at 2:47 a.m., sending glass across coffee-stained linoleum like frozen rain. Rowan Vale didn't scream. She'd learned months ago that screaming only made Sheriff Rooker's smile wider. What she didn't expect was the scarred stranger in the corner booth, the one with dead eyes and an iron revenant's patch on his leather cut, to move between her and the barrel of that gun before her heart could finish its next terrified beat. "Walk away," the biker said quietly, voice like gravel scraping bone. The deputy's hand trembled. "You don't know what you're starting." "Then educate me." "Before you find out whether anyone walks out of that diner alive, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. Because this story about brotherhood, corruption, and one waitress who became worth dying for is about to get darker than you think. Let's ride." The temperature had dropped to 18 degrees by the time Jace Mercer's Harley rolled into Blackwater, Tennessee, 3 nights earlier. Ice glazed the highway like black glass under a moon that didn't care whether anyone made it through till morning. His breath ghosted white against the frigid air, disappearing into darkness the same way he preferred to disappear into towns. Quiet, unnoticed, already planning the exit before his boots hit pavement. He wasn't supposed to stop. Stopping meant questions. Questions meant trouble. And Jace had left enough trouble bleeding out in his wake across 5 states to know better. But his fuel gauge read empty, and his fingers had gone numb inside his gloves 2 hours back. The neon sign ahead flickered weakly through the freezing dark. Rosie's Diner, open 24 hours, and Jace made the choice every exhausted rider makes when winter bites hard enough to draw blood. He pulled into the gravel lot, killed the engine, and listened to the silence that always felt too loud after hours of highway noise hammering through his skull. The parking lot held 3 vehicles. A rusted pickup truck with Tennessee plates, a state trooper's cruiser parked too close to the entrance like a warning, and a decades-old sedan with duct tape holding the back window together, the kind of car that belonged to someone barely surviving. Jace sat on his bike for 30 seconds, studying the building. Fluorescent light spilled through fogged windows. Shadows moved inside. The trooper's silhouette stood near the counter, too still, radiating the kind of authority that had stopped being about protection a long time ago. Every instinct Jace had developed since Iraq told him to restart the engine and keep riding. He went inside anyway. The warmth hit first, artificial heat blasting from old vents that rattled like dying lungs. Then came the smell. Coffee burned hours ago. Grease from a fryer that needed replacing. Pine cleaner failing to mask cigarette smoke embedded in vinyl booth seats. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead with the specific frequency that lived inside Jace's nightmares. The same lights that used to flicker in field hospitals when he'd wake up screaming. The state trooper stood at the counter, mid-40s, soft around the middle in a way that said he spent more time parked than patrolling. His uniform stretched tight across shoulders squared with false confidence. He leaned against the counter like he owned it, watching the waitress with eyes that stripped her down to nothing but fear. The waitress kept her head low while she poured coffee. 25, maybe. Dark hair pulled back tight. Hands that shook just enough for someone like Jace to notice. She wore the kind of exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix. The exhaustion that came from surviving rather than living. Jace took the corner booth without making noise. Old habit. Always sit where you can see both doors. Always keep your back protected. Always know where the nearest weapon is. The serrated steak knife 3 tables over. The fire extinguisher by the kitchen. The heavy glass sugar dispenser within arm's reach. The waitress approached with a pot of coffee and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Up close, Jace could see the bruise on her left cheekbone, faded to yellow-green but recent enough. Another bruise circled her right wrist like a bracelet of fingerprints. "Coffee?" Her voice came out steady but quiet, practiced. The voice of someone who'd learned that being invisible sometimes kept you safe. "Please." Jace kept his own voice low, non-threatening. He'd been told before that his appearance, the scar bisecting his left eyebrow, the 1,000-yard stare, the iron revenant's patch on his cut, made people nervous, women especially. She poured. Her hand trembled. A drop of coffee hit the table instead of the cup. "Sorry," she whispered immediately, reaching for a rag tucked in her apron. "Don't worry about it, Mom. Say shit." But she'd already frozen. Not because of the spilled coffee. Because the trooper had turned at the sound of her voice, his attention shifting from the ancient television mounted in the corner to her presence at Jace's table. "Rowan." The trooper's voice carried across the empty diner like a threat wrapped in false friendliness. That gentleman bothering you? No, sir, Rowan said quickly, too quickly. You sure? Man like that rolls in here middle of the night wearing outlaw colors? The trooper pushed off the counter and started walking toward them. His boots hit the linoleum with deliberate heaviness. Maybe I should check his registration. Make sure he's not carrying anything illegal. Jace stayed perfectly still. He'd been through this dance before. Small-town cops who saw motorcycle clubs and thought they understood violence, who believed their badge made them untouchable, who had no idea what real darkness looked like until it was already wrapping cold fingers around their throat. The trooper stopped beside the table, one hand resting on his service weapon. Not drawing, just reminding everyone in the room who held the power here. License and registration. Jace met his eyes. Empty stare. No challenge. No submission. Just the flat nothing gaze that came from seeing too many people die in too many ways that didn't matter. Bike's legal. I'm legal. Just getting coffee. That's not what I asked. The air in the diner thickened. Rowan had backed away 3 steps, still holding the coffee pot, knuckles white around the handle. Through the kitchen serving window, Jace could see the cook, an older black man with gray temples, watching the confrontation with an expression that said he'd seen this script play out before and knew exactly how it ended. Jace reached slowly into his jacket. The trooper's hand tightened on his weapon, but Jace only pulled out his wallet, movements careful, and placed his license on the table. The trooper picked it up. Read it. His expression shifted slightly, something calculating sliding behind his eyes. Jace Mercer. Address listed as Denver, Colorado. Long way from home. Passing through. To where? Nowhere specific. Well, that's so. The trooper tapped the license against his palm. See, we don't get many iron revenants through Blackwater. In fact, we don't want them here at all. You understand what I'm saying? Jace understood perfectly. This wasn't about the law. This was about territory, about control, about a small-town cop who'd built his kingdom on fear and didn't appreciate strangers, especially dangerous-looking strangers, wandering into his domain. I'll be gone by sunrise, Jace said evenly. You'll be gone when I say you're gone. The trooper leaned closer, voice dropping. And if I find out you've been bothering any of our local women, asking questions you shouldn't ask, sticking your nose where it don't belong? We got plenty of empty back roads around here. Real easy for bikers to have accidents on icy curves. Rowan made a sound. Small, choked. The trooper's head snapped toward her. Something you want to say, Rowan? She shook her head quickly, but Jace had caught it. The flash of terror, the way her hand had moved unconsciously to her bruised wrist, the silent plea in her eyes when she glanced at Jace for just a second before looking away. Don't make it worse. That's what the look said. What all the survivors said when they'd learned that fighting back only meant more pain. The trooper tossed Jace's license back onto the table. Finish your coffee. Pay your tab. Get out of my county. Okay. He turned to Rowan, reaching out to touch her arm, a gesture that looked casual but made her flinch. And you, sweetheart, need to be more careful about who you serve. Some men are dangerous. His fingers squeezed. Just for a second, just enough. Then he walked out into the freezing night, letting the door slam behind him. His cruiser started up with a growl of official authority and pulled out of the lot, taillights bleeding red across ice and gravel. Rowan stood motionless for 10 seconds after he left. Then her shoulders sagged and she exhaled shakily, like someone who'd been holding their breath underwater. Jace watched her, waited. She set the coffee pot down on a nearby table because her hands were shaking too hard to hold it steady. Then she turned toward the kitchen, voice cracking when she spoke to the cook through the serving window. Sam, I'm taking 5. Take 10, baby girl. The old man's voice carried gentle understanding, and lock the bathroom door behind you. She disappeared into the back hallway. Jace heard the bathroom door close, then lock, then the muffled sound of someone crying who'd become very, very good at crying quietly. The cook emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. He moved slowly, the careful movement of someone whose back hurt from decades of standing over hot grills. When he reached Jace's table, he set down a plate with eggs, hash browns, and toast without being asked. On the house. I can pay. I know. Eat anyway. Sam pulled out the opposite chair and sat down with a heavy sigh. His eyes held the kind of tired wisdom that came from watching injustice play out again and again without being able to stop it. The badge you saw. That's Deputy Garrett, Sheriff's right-hand man. And before you ask, yeah, Rowan's scared of him. She's got good reason. Jace picked up his fork but didn't eat yet. None of my business. Probably not. Sam studied him. But you moved toward her when Garrett raised his voice. Most men don't notice. The ones who notice usually don't care. You noticed and you cared. That means something. It shouldn't. Maybe, but it does. Sam leaned back in his chair. Rowan's a good kid. Smart. Used to have dreams. Then her brother Eli started asking questions about the wrong people. Started documenting things he shouldn't have documented. Started thinking he could expose the corruption running this county like cancer through bone. Jace finally took a bite. The eggs tasted like nothing. Everything tasted like nothing lately. What happened to him? Disappeared 6 months ago. Sheriff ruled it a runaway situation. Case closed. But Eli wasn't the running type. He was the type to stand and fight even when standing got you killed. Sam's voice roughened. Rowan's been surviving on fear ever since. Works doubles here, keeps her head down. Prays nobody notices her long enough for her to save money and disappear somewhere Garrett and his people can't find her. Why doesn't she just leave? Where? Sam spread his hands. She's got no family, no money, no car that'll make it past the county line. And Garrett made it clear, she tries to run, they'll find her. Small towns got long memories and even longer reach when the law's dirty. Jace set down his fork. The food sat heavy in his stomach. He'd heard stories like this before. Too many stories. Towns where corruption grew like mold in dark places. Where badges meant power without accountability. Where good people learned to survive by becoming invisible. He told himself he was done being the hero. Heroes died. Heroes got their friends killed. Heroes came home to empty houses and spouses who couldn't recognize them anymore through the PTSD and the night terrors and the rage that never quite went away. But something about Rowan's bruised wrist wouldn't leave his mind. The shape of fingerprints pressed into flesh. The same shape he'd seen on his wife's arms the night before she overdosed, when he'd been too broken from war to notice she was drowning right in front of him. I'm leaving at dawn, Jace said quietly. Sam nodded slowly. Yeah, that's probably smart. He says. He stood, joints popping. But if you change your mind? There's a motel 2 miles north, the Pinewood, cheap and clean. Owner's name is Rita. She's good people. Won't ask questions. I won't change my mind. All right then. Sam picked up the plate even though Jace had barely touched it. Safe riding, brother. And if you're the praying type, maybe say one for Rowan. Lord knows someone should. He disappeared back into the kitchen, leaving Jace alone with cold coffee and the weight of other people's suffering settling across his shoulders like it always did eventually. Jace sat there for another 20 minutes. Outside, snow had started falling, lazy flakes drifting through the neon glow of the diner sign. No other cars pulled into the lot. No other customers came through the door. Blackwater, Tennessee felt like the kind of place that rolled up at sunset and didn't wake up until morning light made the darkness safe again. When Rowan finally emerged from the bathroom, her eyes were red but dry. She'd fixed her hair and straightened her uniform. The armor of normalcy back in place. She moved behind the counter, started wiping down surfaces that didn't need cleaning, avoiding Jace's corner of the diner. He pulled out enough cash to cover the coffee 3 times over and left it under his empty cup. Then he stood, leather jacket creaking, and walked toward the door. Thank you. Her voice stopped him. Quiet. Barely audible over the rattle of the heater. Jace turned. Rowan stood behind the counter, one hand pressed flat against the formica surface like she needed something solid to anchor her. Her eyes met his for just a second, just long enough for him to see the exhaustion, the fear, and underneath it all, the smallest ember of hope that maybe someone in this godforsaken town gave a damn whether she lived or died. For what? Jace asked. For not making it worse. Her voice cracked. Most men, they either don't notice or they notice, and it becomes about them, about their ego, about proving something. And then Garrett comes back angrier and I'm the one who pays for it. But you just sat there, didn't escalate. She trailed off, searching for words. That's the kindest thing anyone's done for me in months. The statement hit Jace harder than he expected. Not making things worse had become kindness. That's how low the bar had fallen in Rowan Vale's world. You deserve better than kindness, Jace said. You deserve safety. Yeah, well, her laugh came out bitter. Safety costs more than I can afford. She turned away before he could respond, disappearing back into the kitchen where Sam waited. Jace heard their muffled voices. Sam's low and comforting, Rowan's breaking again despite her best efforts. He pushed through the diner door into freezing night air that burned his lungs. Snow fell harder now, accumulating on his bike's leather seat. The engine turned over with a growl that seemed too loud in the sleeping town. Jace let it idle, warming up, while his breath steamed white and dissipated into nothing. Leave. That's what every survival instinct screamed. You can't save everyone. You tried that before and it destroyed you. Rowan's problems aren't your problems. Blackwater isn't your town. Right away, and let someone else be the hero for once. But Jace couldn't stop seeing that bruise, couldn't stop hearing "don't make it worse" like it was the only prayer she had left. He pulled out his phone. The screen glowed harsh in the dark. One contact lit up when he scrolled down. Mason St. Boone, president of the Iron Revenants, MC, former Marine. The closest thing Jace had to family after Blood Family had given up on him. The call connected on the second ring despite the late hour. Saint's voice came through rough with sleep, but instantly alert. Grave, you good? Why? Jace hadn't realized how much he needed to hear that question until it landed. Not, what do you want? Or, why are you calling? Just, are you good? The way brothers asked. No, Jace admitted. I'm not. Silence. Then Saint's voice shifted, fully awake now, focused. Talk to me. So Jace did. He told Saint about the diner, about Rowan, about Deputy Garrett and the missing brother and the corruption rotting Blackwater from the inside out, about the bruises and the fear and the way Rowan thanked him for not making things worse, like that was the ceiling of what she could hope for anymore. When he finished, Saint was quiet for a long moment. Background noise filtered through the phone, the distant sound of motorcycles, voices, the life of the clubhouse 3 states away. You calling for permission or backup? Saint asked finally. I don't know. Yeah, you do. You wouldn't have called otherwise. Saint exhaled. Here's what I know about you, Grave. You're the guy who sees the line between walking away and standing ground. And you hate that line more than anything because you know which side your conscience sits on. So I'm going to make this easy for you. I'm coming, so's the club. We'll be there by dawn. Saint, you don't? Yeah, I do. Because that's what brothers are for. And because there's too many Blackwaters in this country where badges go bad and good people disappear and nobody gives enough of a damn to do something about it. So we're going to give a damn. Understand? Jace closed his eyes. Relief and dread hit simultaneously. This could get bad. Then we'll get bad right back. Saint's voice hardened. Send me the location. Stay visible. Don't engage unless you absolutely have to. We ride at 0400. The line went dead. Jace sat on his idling Harley in the parking lot of a roadside diner while snow accumulated on his shoulders and the neon sign flickered above him like a dying heartbeat. He'd made the choice. Called in the club. Set wheels in motion that couldn't be stopped once they started rolling. No going back now. He pulled out of the lot and headed north to the Pinewood Motel. The place looked exactly like Sam described. Cheap, clean, and anonymous. A dozen rooms in a straight line. Half the lights were out. No cars in the lot except a rusted minivan with Canadian plates. The office held a woman in her 60s watching a black and white movie on a television older than Jace. She looked up when the bell above the door chimed, took in his appearance without judgment, and slid a registration card across the counter. Cash or card? Cash. 45 for the night, checkouts at 11. Coffee starts at 6 in the lobby. She counted his money with efficient fingers. Room 8, last one on the end. Quietest spot we got, Geets. Jace took the key. Expecting company tomorrow. Around dawn. Loud company. Rita, her name tag confirmed it, paused mid-count. Her eyes shifted to the Iron Revenants patch on his cut. How loud? Hardly loud. Maybe 8 or 10 bikes. She considered this. They gonna cause trouble? No, ma'am. We're here to stop it. Something in her expression softened. Then I'll make sure there's extra coffee ready. And I'll tell Earl to keep his mouth shut when the sheriff's deputies come asking if anyone's seen bikers in town. Appreciate it. Don't mention it. She went back to counting. My daughter had a situation with Deputy Garrett 3 years back, before she got smart and moved to Knoxville. So whatever you boys are planning, I hope it hurts. Room 8 smelled like industrial cleaner and old carpet, but the bed looked clean and the heater worked. Jace dropped his pack, stripped off his leather jacket, and sat on the edge of the mattress with his phone in his hands. He should sleep. The club would arrive in 5 hours. He needed to be sharp, focused, ready. But sleep meant dreams. Dreams meant Iraq. Meant the sound of IEDs turning Humvees into metal coffins. Meant watching brothers bleed out in sand while he tried to hold their insides inside and failed. Meant coming home to a wife who'd needed him and finding pills scattered across the bathroom floor like fallen stars that had burned out one by one. So Jace sat in the dark instead, waiting for dawn, wondering if this time he'd finally save someone or if he was just delaying the inevitable. His phone buzzed. Text from Saint, rolling out now. Be there 0500. Don't do anything stupid before we arrive. Jace typed back. Define stupid. Anything that gets you killed before I can buy you breakfast. No promises. Figured. Stay alive anyway. That's an order. Jace set the phone down and stared at the wall. The radiator clanked. Snow tapped against the window. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle blew, lonely and mournful, the sound of something passing through without stopping. He must have dozed off eventually because he woke to the sound of engines. Deep. Rhythmic. Multiple. The unmistakable thunder of motorcycles rolling through pre-dawn darkness. Jace checked his phone. 4:47 a.m. The club had arrived early. He pulled on his boots and jacket, stepped outside into cold that cut like razor wire. The parking lot of the Pinewood Motel had transformed. 8 Harley-Davidsons sat in a perfect line, engines idling low, headlights cutting through falling snow. Steam rose from exhaust pipes. Leather-clad figures moved through the half-light, like shadows gaining substance. Saint stood beside his bike, a matte black Road King with enough miles on it to circle the earth twice. He wore his Iron Revenant's president patch like armor. Silver threaded through his beard. His eyes held the specific emptiness that came from seeing too much death and deciding to keep living anyway out of pure spite. Beside him stood Tank, 6'5" of scarred knuckles and broken nose, the club's sergeant-at-arms. Then Crow, wiry and silent, the best rider and worst conversationalist Jace had ever met. Reaper, Smoke, Diesel, Hammer, each one a veteran in one way or another, each one carrying their own ghosts. "Morning, Grave," Saint's voice cut through the engine rumble. "You look like hell." "Feel worse." "Good. Means you're alive." Saint killed his engine. The others followed suit. Silence rushed in, profound and heavy. "Now tell me everything again, slower this time. I want details." So they gathered in Jace's motel room. Too many bodies in too small a space. The smell of leather and motor oil and cigarette smoke mixing with stale air. Jace went through it again. Every word, every detail. The way Garrett grabbed Rowan's wrist, the missing brother, the corruption, the fear that permeated this town like rot through wood. When he finished, Saint leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. "All right, here's how we play this. We go to the diner, we sit, we drink coffee, we watch. We don't engage unless they engage first. No property damage, no threats, no violence. We're just travelers passing through who happen to be paying very close attention. And when they push?" Tank asked. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Then we push back. But legally. Cameras on. Everything documented. We're not outlaws here. We're concerned citizens witnessing potential civil rights violations and possible corruption." Saint's smile held no warmth. "The club's lawyer loves this shit. Gives them something to do besides bail our asses out of jail." "What about the girl?" Crow asked. "Rowan." Jace spoke before he could stop himself. "We protect her. Whatever it takes." "Vamos." Every eye in the room turned toward him. Saint's expression shifted, reading between the lines, seeing what Jace wasn't saying, understanding. Personal? Saint asked quietly. Maybe. That's going to complicate things. I know. Saint nodded slowly. All right then. We protect her. But Grave? If this goes sideways, if you let emotion override tactics, people die. You know that better than anyone. Yeah. Jace met his president's eyes. I know. Good. Saint pushed off the wall. Then let's go get some coffee. And brothers, keep your eyes open and your mouths shut unless spoken to. We're sending a message here, and that message is, you're being watched. They rolled out at 5:15 a.m. 8 motorcycles moving through Blackwater's empty streets like a funeral procession for a town that had died without noticing. Main Street lay deserted, shops closed, streetlights flickering, snow covering everything in white silence. The diner's neon sign glowed weakly through the early morning dark. Only 2 vehicles sat in the lot, Rowan's duct-taped sedan, and a black pickup truck Jace didn't recognize. Tennessee plates, gun rack in the rear window, bumper stickers about freedom and firearms. The Revenants parked their bikes in a perfect line facing the diner entrance. 8 motorcycles, 8 men, silent and still. Then they walked inside. The bell above the door chimed 8 times. Sam stood behind the counter, coffee pot frozen mid-pour. His eyes went wide. Rowan emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of silverware. The tray slipped from her hands, hitting the floor with a crash that seemed impossibly loud. And at the corner booth, the same booth Jace had occupied hours earlier, sat Deputy Garrett. His hand moved toward his weapon. Saint raised both hands slowly, palms out. Just here for coffee, officer. No trouble. Ooh. Garrett's eyes moved from Saint to Tank to the iron Revenant's patches on their cuts. Calculation played across his face. 8 against 1. But he wore the badge. And this was his town. Diner's closed, Garrett said flatly. Sign says open 24 hours, Saint replied evenly. I said it's closed, Moss. And I said the sign says otherwise. Saint's voice never raised, never hardened, just stayed perfectly, dangerously calm. Now we can have a conversation about whether you're illegally denying service based on our appearance. Or you can finish your coffee while we drink ours. Either way, we're sitting down. The standoff held for 5 seconds that felt like 5 hours. Then Rowan spoke, her voice shaking but audible. I'll get coffee. Garrett's head snapped toward her. Rowan's? They're customers, she said quickly. And Sam taught me you serve everyone who walks through that door. So I'm serving them. Something flickered in Garrett's expression, rage barely contained. But with 8 bikers watching, he couldn't do what he wanted to do. Couldn't grab her wrist, couldn't threaten her, couldn't remind her what happened to people who didn't show proper respect. So he stood slowly, adjusting his duty belt. This isn't over. Never said it was, Saint replied. Garrett walked toward the door. Stopped when he reached Saint. They were the same height, but Saint had 40 pounds of muscle and a lifetime of violence that made Garrett's authority feel like paper in the wind. You boys have just made a very big mistake, Garrett said quietly. We've made bigger, Saint answered. Garrett left. His truck started with an aggressive roar and tore out of the parking lot, taillights disappearing into the snowy dawn. The bell above the door stopped swinging. Nobody moved. Then Tank let out a breath. Well, that was fun. Shut up, Tank, Saint said without heat. He turned to Rowan, who stood frozen by the counter, eyes wide. Ma'am, I apologize for the disruption. We genuinely just want coffee. And maybe some breakfast if you're serving. Rowan blinked, looked at Jace. Something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or shared understanding of what had just started. I'll get menus, she whispered. She disappeared into the kitchen. Sam stepped forward, wiping his hands on his apron, studying the bikers with careful eyes. Don't know what you boys think you're doing, Sam said slowly. But Garrett's not going to forget this. And when Garrett doesn't forget, people around him suffer. Then maybe it's time Garrett learned what happens when he messes with people who don't suffer quietly, Saint replied. He pulled out a chair at the largest table, sat down with the confidence of a man who'd faced worse than small-town deputies. Coffee? Black. For everyone. One by one, the Iron Revenants sat, on the iron, filling the diner with leather and silence and the promise of violence held on a leash that could snap at any moment. And Jace, watching Rowan return from the kitchen with shaking hands and determined eyes, knew with absolute certainty that before this ended, blood would be spilled. The only question was whose. The coffee tasted like burnt dirt, but nobody complained. The Iron Revenant sat scattered across 3 tables in Rosie's diner while dawn broke cold and gray outside fogged windows. Steam rose from their cups. Cigarette smoke curled toward yellowed ceiling tiles. Nobody spoke much. They didn't need to. Brothers who'd ridden together long enough could communicate through silence. The angle of a shoulder, the tap of fingers on Formica, the way Tank kept glancing toward the door every 30 seconds, waiting for trouble to walk back through. Rowan moved between tables with the coffee pot, refilling cups with hands that shook less than before, but still trembled enough for Jace to notice. She avoided eye contact, kept her head down. The armor of invisibility back in place, even though 8 bikers sat between her and whatever came next. Sam worked the grill, the sizzle of bacon and hash browns providing white noise that almost felt normal. Almost. Saint sat at the center table with Jace on his left and Tank on his right. He'd pulled out his phone 10 minutes ago and hadn't looked up since. Reading, typing, coordinating something. Finally, he set it down and spoke without raising his voice. Lawyer's awake. I sent him everything. Photos of Rowan's bruises if she'll consent. Witness statements from Sam. Documentation of Garrett's threats. He's calling it a civil rights violation waiting to happen, and he's hungry. Saint lifted his coffee cup but didn't drink. Also reached out to a contact at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Told him we have reason to believe local law enforcement in Blackwater might be connected to drug trafficking and possible homicide. He's interested. How interested? Jace asked. Interested enough to make calls. Not interested enough to send agents yet. We need more than bruises and a missing person case the sheriff already closed. Saint's eyes moved to Rowan, who stood by the kitchen serving window talking quietly with Sam. We need her brother's evidence, whatever Eli found before he disappeared. If it still exists, Crow said from the next table over. His voice came out rough from decades of cigarettes and not talking unless absolutely necessary. 6 months is a long time. Evidence disappears. So do bodies, Tank added darkly. And if the sheriff's dirty enough to kill witnesses, he's dirty enough to destroy documentation. Ours... Bomb. Jace watched Rowan. She'd gone still, coffee pot frozen midair, shoulders rigid. She'd heard every word. The diner was too small and her fear too sharp for her not to hear. Saint noticed, too. He stood, movements deliberate, and walked toward the counter. Ma'am? Rowan? Can we talk? She turned slowly. Her eyes held the exhaustion of someone who'd stopped sleeping properly months ago. About what? Your brother, Eli. Saint kept his voice gentle, the tone he used when talking to civilians, when trying not to scare people who already had every reason to be terrified. We want to help, but we need to understand what we're walking into here, what he found, what got him killed. Rowan's face went pale. I didn't say he was killed. You didn't have to. Saint gestured toward an empty booth away from the others. Please, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. She looked at Sam. The old cook nodded once, permission and encouragement wrapped together. Rowan set down the coffee pot with trembling hands and followed Saint to the booth. Jay started to stand, but Saint held up one finger. Stay there. Let me handle this. Jay sat back down, jaw tight, watching the conversation unfold through body language since he couldn't hear the words. Saint talking. Rowan shaking her head. Saint's expression softening. Rowan breaking, shoulders collapsing inward, hands covering her face. Saint sliding a napkin across the table. Waiting. He's good at that, Tank said quietly. Getting people to trust him. Yeah. Jace's voice came out harder than intended. He is. You got a problem with how Saint's running this? No. Then why do you sound like you do? Jace didn't answer. He couldn't explain the feeling crawling through his chest, something between jealousy and resentment and self-loathing. He'd been the one to find Rowan, to see her fear, to call in the club. But now Saint was taking point, and Jace felt like a spectator in his own rescue mission, except it wasn't a rescue mission. It was revenge masquerading as protection, and everyone at these tables knew it. Across the diner, Rowan started talking. Her voice stayed low, but the body language shifted, leaning forward instead of away, gestures becoming more animated. Saint listened without interrupting, took notes on his phone, asked questions that made her pause and think before answering. 10 minutes passed. 15. The sky outside brightened from black to gray to that pale winter white that hurt to look at. More vehicles appeared on the road, pickup trucks, a few sedans. Blackwater waking up to find 8 Harleys parked outside the diner like a declaration of war. Finally, Saint stood, shook Rowan's hand with both of his, and walked back to the center table. His expression had shifted, still calm but harder now, the Marine underneath the biker president showing through. Eli Vale was a freelance journalist, Saint said without preamble. Worked for regional papers, did investigative pieces. 3 years ago, he started noticing patterns. Drug arrests that never led to convictions. Property seizures without due process. People who spoke up against the sheriff's department suddenly having their businesses shut down or their homes raided on anonymous tips. Saint pulled out his phone and showed them a photo. A young man with Rowan's dark hair and sharp eyes, smiling at the camera with the confidence of someone who believed truth mattered. Eli spent 2 years documenting everything. Financial records, recorded conversations, photographs. He was building a case that Sheriff Cal Rooker and his deputies were running a methamphetamine distribution network under the cover of law enforcement. Classic protection racket. Rooker let certain dealers operate freely in exchange for a cut. Anyone who competed got arrested. Anyone who talked got silenced. And Eli talked, Jace said. Worse, he was about to publish. Saint swiped to another photo. This one showing file boxes stacked in what looked like a storage unit. He told Rowan he was taking the story to the Knoxville News Sentinel, had a meeting scheduled with their investigative editor. That was 6 months ago. He left his apartment in the morning and never came back. Rowan reported him missing. Sheriff Rooker personally handled the case. Declared it a voluntary missing person situation within 48 hours. Case closed. Sheet. The evidence? Crow asked. Gone. Eli kept everything in a storage unit outside city limits. Rowan has the key, but she's too scared to go there. Says Garrett watches her constantly. Follows her to work. Parks outside her apartment. She thinks the storage unit is probably under surveillance too. Tank cracked his knuckles, a sound like breaking branches. Then we go get it. Not yet, Saint said firmly. We go rushing in. We confirm we're working with Rowan. That makes her a bigger target. Right now, Garrett thinks we're just bikers passing through. We keep it that way until we know what we're dealing with. So, what's the play? Reaper asked from the far table. He was smaller than the others, wiry and compact, with scars on his hands that came from bomb disposal work in Afghanistan. The kind of guy who stayed calm while defusing explosives, but fell apart in grocery stores when the fluorescent lights buzzed wrong. We establish presence, Saint said. We stay visible. We document every interaction with local law enforcement. We make it clear that Rowan Vale is under the protection of the Iron Revenant's MC, and any further harassment will be met with legal action and media exposure. He looked at each of them in turn. No violence unless they bring it first. No property damage. No threats. We're ghosts with cameras. Understand? Boshem. Everyone nodded except Jace. He was still staring at the photo of Eli Vale, the confident smile, the hopeful eyes, the look of someone who thought justice actually existed. Grave? Saint's voice cut through his thoughts. You with me? Yeah. Jace forced himself to look up. I'm with you. Oh, but he wasn't. Not really. Because Saint was talking about legal action and documentation and lawyers, while Jace was thinking about Deputy Garrett's hand on Rowan's wrist, about her quiet voice saying, don't make it worse, about how men like Rooker didn't get stopped by lawyers. They got stopped by force. Saint must have seen it in his eyes because his expression hardened. Outside. Now. They left their coffee cooling on the table and walked into winter air that bit through leather like teeth. The parking lot was empty except for their bikes and Rowan's sedan. Snow had stopped falling, but gray clouds promised more coming. Saint pulled out a cigarette, lit it, took a long drag before speaking. You gonna tell me what's in your head, or do I have to guess? Nothing's in my head. Bullshit. Saint exhaled smoke into cold air. I've known you 8 years, Grave. I know when you're planning something stupid. So talk. Jace shoved his hands in his jacket pockets. You're moving too slow. I'm moving careful. There's a difference. While we're being careful, Garrett's going to hurt her again. You know it. I know it. Every second we sit around drinking coffee and taking notes, Rowan's in danger. So we move her. Get her somewhere safe. Let the lawyers and TBI do their jobs. And what if it's not enough? Jace's voice rose despite himself. What if the TBI decides there's not enough evidence? What if Rooker has connections higher up the food chain? What if Rowan disappears like her brother, and we're left standing here with our documentation and our legal strategy while she's bleeding out in a ditch somewhere? Saint took another drag. Let the silence stretch. When he finally spoke, his voice came out quiet and dangerous. You think I don't know that? You think I haven't seen this shit play out before? Corrupt cops. Dead witnesses. Systems that protect their own no matter what? He flicked ash onto the pavement. But the difference between us and them is we don't get to break the law and hide behind badges. We break it, and we go to prison. So yeah, I'm moving slow. Because I'm trying to keep my brothers out of cages while still doing the right thing. Poptis wo etatem. The right thing. Jace laughed bitterly. The right thing got Eli killed. So what's your solution? We walk into the sheriff's station and put bullets in everyone wearing a uniform? That make you feel better? Maybe. Saint's hand shot out, grabbing Jace's jacket, slamming him back against the diner's brick wall. Coffee and cigarettes and old violence rolled off Saint in waves. His voice dropped to a growl. Listen to me very carefully. You go off half-cocked, trying to be some kind of avenging angel. You don't just get yourself killed. You get all of us killed. You burn this club to the ground, and you make Rowan's situation 10 times worse because now she's the witness to bikers committing murder. Saint's grip tightened. I know you're carrying guilt about your wife. I know you think saving Rowan will somehow balance those scales. But it won't. And if you can't separate your trauma from this situation, I'm putting you on a bus back to Denver right fucking now. The words hit like body shots. Jace wanted to push back, wanted to throw a punch, wanted to do something other than stand there absorbing the truth he'd been avoiding. I called you for help, Jace said finally, not to take over. Besides, no, you called me because you knew you couldn't handle this alone. Because you knew your judgment was compromised and you needed brothers to keep you from doing something that couldn't be undone. Saint let go of his jacket. I'm not taking over. I'm keeping you alive. There's a difference. He walked back inside without waiting for a response. Anto. Jace stood in the cold parking lot, breathing hard, fists clenched. The sky pressed down gray and heavy. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Leave town while you still can. This is your only warning. Jace stared at the message. No signature, no name, just threat wrapped in courtesy. He deleted it and went back inside. The diner had filled up while they were outside. 4 new customers occupied the corner booth, local men in Carhartt jackets and work boots, nursing coffee and watching the bikers with expressions that ranged from curiosity to hostility. Sam worked the grill faster now. Rowan moved between tables with mechanical efficiency, the armor of waitress politeness firmly back in place. Jace slid back into his seat. Tank raised an eyebrow but didn't ask. Crow pretended to study his phone. Diesel, a quiet black biker who'd done 3 tours in Iraq with the army, watched the local men with the flat awareness of someone cataloging threats. Saint sat down across from Jace and spoke low enough that only their table could hear. We're going to split up. Diesel and Hammer are going to the storage unit to check surveillance. Crow and Smoke are doing a drive around town, getting the layout, noting camera positions. Tank's staying here with me and Grave. We drink coffee. We look friendly. We wait. For what? Jace asked. For them to make a move. Because they will. Men like Garrett can't help themselves. They see a challenge to their authority and they have to respond. Saint picked up his coffee. When they do, we document everything, record everything, make sure the world sees exactly who these people are. The door chimed. Everyone's attention shifted. A man walked in, late 50s, thick through the middle, wearing a sheriff's uniform and an expression of barely concealed rage. Sheriff Cal Rooker. His hand rested on his service weapon like a promise. Two deputies flanked him. One was Garrett, the other was younger, nervous, eyes darting between the bikers and his boss. The diner went silent. Even the locals stopped talking. Rooker's eyes swept the room, cataloging, calculating. When his gaze landed on the iron revenants, his mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Morning, gentlemen. Didn't realize we had visitors." Saint stood slowly, palms open, non-threatening. "Morning, Sheriff. Just passing through? Enjoying the hospitality." "Bom samasmos." "That's so." Rooker walked toward them with the confident stride of a man who'd never been told no. "See, that's interesting, because I got a call this morning from Deputy Garrett here saying a motorcycle club rolled into town and started harassing him while he was trying to eat breakfast in peace." "That's not what happened," Rowan said before she could stop herself. Every head turned toward her. She stood by the counter, coffee pot in hand, face pale, but voice steady. Garrett took a step toward her. "You calling me a liar, Rowan?" "I'm saying they didn't harass anyone. They ordered coffee, that's all. And how would you know what happened before you got here?" Because Sam told me. And Sam doesn't lie." Rooker's attention shifted to Sam. The old cook met his gaze without flinching, but his hands had gone still over the grill. The kind of stillness that came from prey animals trying not to be noticed by predators. "Sam," Rooker's voice carried false friendliness. "You got something to add?" "Just what I saw, Sheriff. These gentlemen came in, asked for coffee and breakfast, paid their tab, no trouble." "Uh-huh." Rooker turned back to Saint. "You boys have names? Club affiliation?" Saint pulled out his wallet, extracted a business card, and handed it over. The card listed him as president of the Iron Revenants MC, along with a phone number and email address. Professional, legal. Exactly the kind of thing motorcycle clubs did when they were trying to operate above board. Rooker read the card. His expression shifted, something dangerous sliding behind his eyes. Iron Revenants, out of Colorado. That's a long way from home. We travel. For what purpose? Brotherhood, open road, coffee that tastes like battery acid. Saint's tone stayed light, but his posture had changed. Weight balanced, ready to move. "Is there a problem, Sheriff?" "Might be. See, we're a small town. Peaceful. Don't get much motorcycle traffic. And when we do, it usually comes with trouble." Rooker tucked the business card in his shirt pocket. "So here's what's going to happen. You boys are going to finish your coffee, pay your tab, and then you're going to ride your bikes out of Blackwater County and not come back. We clear?" "No, sir." Saint's voice stayed calm. "We're not clear, because unless you have legal grounds to force us to leave, we're exercising our right to free movement and association. We're not breaking any laws. We're not causing trouble. We're customers in a public establishment." The temperature in the diner dropped 10 degrees. Rooker smiled, genuinely this time, like he'd been waiting for someone to push back. "Legal grounds. You hear that, Garrett? Man wants legal grounds." He took a step closer to Saint. They were the same height, but Rooker carried the weight of institutional authority and years of getting away with violence. "Here's your legal grounds. This is my county, my jurisdiction. And I got reasonable suspicion that you and your club are here to engage in criminal activity. So I'm ordering you to leave, right now, or I'll arrest every one of you for conspiracy to commit drug trafficking." "Based on what evidence?" Saint asked. "Based on the fact that the Iron Revenants MC has documented ties to methamphetamine distribution in Colorado and Wyoming. Based on the fact that you rolled into town the same week we've seen an uptick in drug activity. Based on the fact that I'm the fucking sheriff, and I said so." The lies came smooth and practiced. Rooker had done this before, manufacturing probable cause, twisting the law into a weapon, using his badge to silence anyone who challenged him. Tank started to stand. Saint's hand shot out, gripping his arm. "Stay down." "Sheriff," Saint said carefully, "we're happy to cooperate with any lawful investigation, but we're not leaving based on false accusations. If you want to arrest us, do it. We'll contact our lawyer and see how it plays out in court." "Court." Rooker laughed. "You think some judge is going to take your word over mine? You're outlaws. Criminals wearing leather cuts. I'm an elected official with 23 years of service." He gestured to Garrett and the younger deputy. Take them in. All of them. Conspiracy to distribute controlled substances. Garrett moved forward, hand on his handcuffs. The younger deputy hesitated, and Jace stood up. No. One word. Quiet. But it carried the weight of years of violence and loss and rage that had been building since his wife died and kept building through every mile of highway he'd ridden, trying to outrun his own demons. Saint's voice cracked like a whip. Grave. Sit. Down. Jace ignored him, his eyes locked on Garrett. You're not arresting anyone, because you don't have probable cause. You don't have evidence. You've got lies and a badge and the mistaken belief that makes you untouchable. Jace! Rowan's voice came out terrified. Please. No. Jace took a step toward Garrett. I'm done watching you hurt people. I'm done watching cowards hide behind uniforms while good people disappear. You want to arrest someone? Start with yourself. For assault. For intimidation. For whatever you did to Eli Vale. The diner exploded into motion. Garrett reached for his weapon. Tank surged to his feet. The younger deputy backed toward the door. Local customers scrambled out of their booth. Sam yelled something from the kitchen. Rowan dropped the coffee pot and it shattered across linoleum. But before anyone could draw or throw a punch or turn this into the bloodbath everyone could feel coming, Saint's voice cut through the chaos like a blade through flesh. Everyone stop! And miraculously, they did. Saint stood in the center of the diner, arms spread wide, voice dropping to something cold and dangerous and absolutely certain. Sheriff Rooker, you want to arrest my brothers? Do it. But understand something first. We're recording this entire interaction. Audio and video. Multiple cameras. Multiple phones. It's already uploading to cloud storage and being sent to our lawyer, the ACLU, and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. He pulled out his phone, showed the screen, red recording icon blinking steadily. So if you arrest us on false charges, if you manufacture evidence, if any of us happen to die in custody or have mysterious accidents, the world's going to see exactly who you are, your name, your face, your corruption, and it won't just be local news, it'll be national. You'll be the poster child for dirty cops. Is that really how you want your career to end? The silence that followed felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane, everything calm, but only because worse was coming. Rooker's face had gone purple. His hand trembled on his weapon. For 5 seconds, Jace genuinely thought the sheriff was going to start shooting and damn the consequences. Then Rooker smiled, cold, empty. You're right, he said quietly. Arresting you would be messy, complicated, lots of paperwork. He looked at each biker in turn. But here's the thing about small towns. Accidents happen. House fires. Car crashes on icy roads. People disappear into the woods and never come out. His eyes landed on Rowan. Sometimes even pretty young waitresses just vanish. And by the time anyone investigates, there's nothing left to find. Rowan made a sound, small, choked, and something in Jace broke. He moved before thinking. 3 steps and his fist was already cocked back, aiming for Rooker's face, ready to break the man's jaw and damn every consequence. Tank caught him. 260 pounds of muscle wrapped around Jace's torso, dragging him backward. Jace fought, landing an elbow in Tank's ribs, but Tank held on with the grim determination of someone who'd tackled suicide bombers in Fallujah and wasn't about to let a brother destroy his own life. Let me go, Jace snarled. No. He threatened her? I know. We can't let him. We won't. Tank's voice dropped to a growl directly in Jace's ear. But not like this. Not by playing into his hands. You hit him and we all go to jail and Rowan ends up dead. Use your fucking head. Jace stopped struggling. His breath came in ragged gasps. Sweat dripped down his spine despite the cold. Across the diner, Rooker watched with an expression of satisfaction, like he'd just proven exactly what he wanted to prove. That's what I thought, Rooker said. Just outlaws pretending to be civilized. Can't help yourselves when someone pushes the right buttons. He adjusted his belt. Here's how this is going to work. You boys have 24 hours to leave my county. After that, I find you here, I will arrest you. And I guarantee you won't make it to a courthouse to tell your story. We clear now? Saint's jaw worked. Crystal. Good. Rooker headed toward the door. Stopped. Looked back at Rowan. And sweetheart, you might want to think real careful about who you trust. These men aren't your friends. They're criminals playing hero, and when they leave, and they will leave, you're gonna still be here. Alone. With me. He tipped his hat. Have a blessed day. He walked out. Garrett followed. The younger deputy lingered for just a second, his expression conflicted before leaving as well. The diner stayed frozen for 10 seconds after they left. Then Rowan ran to the bathroom, and they heard her vomiting through the closed door. Sam came out from behind the counter, his face ashen. You boys need to go. Right now. This is going to get people killed, and I won't have blood spilled in my diner. Sam, Saint started. No, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but Rooker wasn't bluffing. He will kill you. He will kill Rowan, and he'll sleep fine doing it. Sam's hand shook. Please, just go. The local customers had already left, slipping out the back door while the confrontation exploded. The diner sat empty except for the bikers and the muffled sound of Rowan crying in the bathroom. Tank finally released Jace. You good? No. Didn't think so. Tank rubbed his ribs where Jace's elbow had connected. Gonna feel that tomorrow. You hit hard for a skinny bastard. Sorry. Don't be. You were trying to do the right thing, just the wrong way. Tank grabbed his jacket. What now, Saint? Saint stood motionless, staring at the door Rooker had walked through. When he finally spoke, his voice came out tired and old. Now we regroup. Figure out if we can still salvage this without getting everyone killed. And if we can't, Crow asked, then we leave. And we call in every federal contact we have. And we hope to God someone gives enough of a damn to investigate before Rooker makes Rowan disappear. That's it? Jace's voice cracked. We just abandon her? See? Unless you got a better plan that doesn't end with us in body bags, yeah, that's it. Saint pulled out cash, dropped it on the table, enough to cover everyone's meal 3 times over. We're not martyrs, Grave. We're not saviors. We're just men trying to do the least amount of harm in a world designed to chew us up and spit us out. Sometimes the best we can do is survive and live to fight another day. He headed toward the door. One by one, the others followed. Diesel, Hammer, Crow, Smoke, Reaper, filing out like soldiers abandoning a lost position. Tank paused beside Jace. You coming? In a minute? Grave? I said in a minute. Tank hesitated. Then he gripped Jace's shoulder once and left. The bathroom door opened. Rowan emerged, face blotchy, eyes swollen. She'd washed her face but couldn't wash away the terror. They're leaving, she said. Statement, not question. Yeah. Because of me. No. Because of Rooker. Because sometimes staying just makes things worse. She laughed bitterly. Story of my life. She walked to the counter, started cleaning up the shattered coffee pot with shaking hands. It's okay. I'm used to being abandoned. My parents died when I was 16. Eli raised me until he disappeared. I've been on my own before. I can do it again. But my way. Jace watched her kneel on the floor, picking up glass shards with bare hands, tears dripping onto broken ceramic. The image burned itself into his brain, another person suffering while the world moved on without caring. His wife had looked like that the night before she overdosed. Broken. Alone. Trying to clean up messes while drowning in pain nobody else could see. Jace had left her too. Had gone to a bar instead of staying home. Had told himself she'd be fine for a few hours while he tried to outrun his own PTSD with whiskey and silence. She'd been dead when he got back. Pills scattered across the bathroom counter like stars that had burned out one by one. He'd spent every day since then running. From guilt, from grief, from the fundamental truth that he failed the one person who needed him most. And now here was Rowan, bruised, terrified, picking up broken pieces while everyone walked away. Jace made a choice. I'm not leaving. Rowan froze, looked up. What? I'm not leaving. The club might have to go, but I don't. He knelt beside her, took the glass from her bleeding hands. You don't deserve this. You don't deserve to be abandoned, and I'm done running from people who need help. Jace? She shook her head. He'll kill you. Probably. Then why? He met her eyes. Because someone has to stand. And I'm tired of being the guy who walks away. For a long moment, they knelt there on the diner floor surrounded by broken glass and spilled coffee and the weight of impossible choices. Then Rowan whispered, Eli had a backup of all his evidence. He gave me a thumb drive before he disappeared, made me promise to keep it safe, to not tell anyone, to only use it if... She trailed off. If what? If they killed him and there was no other choice. She stood, wobbling slightly. It's hidden in my apartment, under the floorboards in my bedroom closet. Everything, financial records, recordings, photos. Enough to destroy Rooker and everyone working with him. Jay stood too, his heart hammered. Why didn't you tell Saint? Well, she is. Because the last time I trusted someone, my brother disappeared. Her voice broke. But you just threw away your safety for me. For a stranger, so maybe. She took a shaking breath. Maybe you're different. Outside, engines started. The iron revenants preparing to leave. Saint would be looking for him, expecting him to ride out with the club, to follow orders, to stay alive. Jace pulled out his phone, sent a text to Saint. I'm staying. Don't try to stop me. 3 seconds later, his phone rang. He declined the call. Sent another message. Rowan has evidence, real evidence. I'm going to get it. We'll contact you when it's secure. The phone rang again and again. Jace turned it off. Rowan watched with wide eyes. You just burned your bridge. Yeah, they won't help you now. I know. So it's just you, against Rooker and his entire department. Not just me. Jace met her gaze. Us. We're in this together now, for better or worse. But this is the worst part, Rowan said quietly. Always is before it gets better. Sam emerged from the kitchen, looking between them with an expression of profound sadness. You two have lost your minds. Probably, Jace agreed. Rooker finds out you're still here. He'll come for you tonight. Won't even wait for sunrise. Then we better move fast. Jace turned to Rowan. Your apartment. How far? 2 miles, east side of town. Can you get there without being followed? Maybe. Garrett usually watches me, but with everything that just happened. She grabbed her coat from behind the counter. We need to go now, before he realizes I left. Wait. Sam disappeared into the kitchen, came back with a snub-nosed .38 revolver. He held it out to Jace. Belonged to my father. Hasn't been fired in 20 years, but it's clean and registered. You take it, and you keep that girl safe, or I'll shoot you myself. Jace took the weapon, checked the cylinder, fully loaded. He tucked it in his jacket. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just stay alive long enough to make this worth something. Sam gripped Rowan's shoulders. Baby girl, you sure about this? No? She kissed his cheek. But I'm doing it anyway, and they left through the back door, into an alley that smelled like grease and garbage and winter decay. Rowan's sedan sat parked behind the diner, rusted and battered, but the engine turned over on the first try. Jace climbed into the passenger seat. The interior smelled like old coffee and fear. Rowan's hand shook on the steering wheel, but she backed out of the alley with practiced ease and pulled onto Main Street heading east. In the distance, the sound of Harley engines faded as the iron revenants rode out of Blackwater County, leaving Jace and Rowan alone, against a corrupt sheriff, against his armed deputies, against a system designed to protect men like Rooker. But they had evidence, they had determination, and they had each other. Whether that would be enough remained to be seen. Rowan drove through the gray winter morning, eyes flicking constantly to the rearview mirror. My apartment's in the old mill district. Cheap rent, thin walls. Everyone minds their own business because everyone's got something to hide. Good. Not really. Means if someone screams, nobody calls the cops. Even better, we don't want cops showing up. She almost smiled, almost. You're either really brave or really stupid. Can it be both? This time she did smile, just for a second, before her expression collapsed back into fear. Thank you for staying. She swallowed hard. Nobody's done that before. Yeah, well, I'm not good at walking away anymore. Tried it once. Didn't work out. They drove in silence for another minute. Then Rowan spoke again, voice barely audible. Eli used to say the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. I think he got that from somewhere, but I don't remember where. He said it a lot, though, right up until he disappeared. She turned onto a side street lined with run-down apartment complexes. Onto a side. I used to think it was naive. Now I think maybe he was right. Maybe doing something, even something stupid, is better than doing nothing. Isharash. Your brother sounds like he was a good man. He was. Her voice cracked. I don't even know which tense to use anymore. Rooker never officially declared him dead, so technically he's just missing, but everyone knows. Everyone knows and nobody cares because caring means becoming the next person to disappear. Yeet. I'm out. She pulled into a parking lot behind a 3-story brick building that had seen better decades. Half the windows were dark. Graffiti covered the ground floor. A shopping cart lay overturned near the dumpster. Home sweet home, Rowan said without humor. 3rd floor. Apartment 3C. There's a back stairwell that's usually empty. They got out. The cold hit immediately. That specific January cold that went straight through leather and skin to settle in bones. Jay scanned the parking lot. No obvious surveillance. No suspicious vehicles. But that didn't mean they weren't being watched. Stay close, he said. They entered through a back door that didn't lock properly. The stairwell smelled like mold and cigarettes and defeat. Their footsteps echoed on concrete steps. 2nd floor, 3rd floor. A narrow hallway with flickering fluorescent lights and carpet that had probably been ugly even when it was new. Rowan stopped at 3C. Her hands shook so badly she couldn't get the key in the lock. Let me. Jace took the key ring, unlocked the door, pushed it open slowly. Stay behind me, He stepped inside, hand moving automatically to the 38 inches in his jacket. The apartment was small, 1 bedroom, kitchenette, living area with a thrift store couch and a television that looked older than Rowan. But it was clean, organized, the desperate cleanliness of someone trying to maintain control over the only space they had left. Photos covered 1 wall. Rowan and a young man who had to be Eli. Smiling, happy, before everything went wrong. Clear? Rowan whispered from the doorway. Clear. Jace moved away from the entrance. Show me where it is. She led him to the bedroom. Tiny space, single bed with a patchwork quilt, IKEA dresser, closet with accordion doors. She opened the closet, knelt down, and started pulling out shoes and boxes. Help me move this. Together they shifted the contents of the closet floor. Underneath, barely visible, was a loose floorboard. Rowan pried it up with shaking fingers, reached into the dark space beneath, pulled out a small black thumb drive wrapped in plastic. This is it, she whispered. Everything Eli died for. Jace took it carefully. Such a small thing, no bigger than his thumb, but it held enough power to bring down a sheriff, and God knew how many others. We need to get this somewhere safe. Upload it to multiple locations. Send it to journalists, federal agencies. Make sure Rooker can't bury it. And then? Then we hope someone with actual authority gives a damn. Rowan stood, brushing dust from her knees. That's not a very good plan. No, it's not. Jace pocketed the drive. But it's the only one we've got. Unless you want to... The sound of boots in the hallway cut him off. Heavy. Multiple sets. Moving with purpose. Rowan's face went white. Oh God. Bedroom. Now! Jace pulled the 38 from his jacket. 5 rounds. Against however many were in that hallway. The footsteps stopped outside the apartment door. Then someone knocked. 3 times. Slow. Deliberate. Rowan Vale. Deputy Garrett's voice carried through the thin door. Open up. We need to talk. Rowan grabbed Jace's arm, fingernails digging in. Terror radiated off her in waves. Jace looked around frantically. The apartment's windows faced the front of the building. 3 stories up. No fire escape. 1 exit, and it was blocked by armed deputies. Another knock. Harder this time. We know you're in there, Rowan, and we know you got someone with you. That biker. The one who threatened the sheriff. You both need to come out. Right now, or we're coming in. Jace moved to the window. Looked down. 3 stories. Landing on pavement. Probable broken legs. Maybe worse. But alive was better than dead. Can you climb? He whispered. What? The window. Can you climb down? There's nothing to climb on. I'll lower you as far as I can, then you drop. Tuck and roll when you hit. Don't think, just move. Jace, that's insane. The door exploded inward, not kicked. They'd used a battering ram. 3 deputies poured through the opening. Garrett in front. 2 others behind him, all with weapons drawn. Time became syrup. Jace raised Sam's .38. Garrett's eyes widened. Someone yelled, "Gun!" And the first shot shattered what was left of Jace Mercer's chance at redemption. The gunshot echoed through the cheap apartment walls like thunder trapped in a coffin. Garrett went down first, chest blooming red, expression frozen in shock. The deputy behind him took one to the throat. The third managed to turn before the bullet caught him in the spine, and he crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. 3 bodies, 3 seconds. 3 shots fired with surgical precision. Sheriff Cal Rooker stood in the doorway holding a smoking Glock 19, his face calm as winter ice. Behind him, 2 more figures emerged from the hallway shadows, men in tactical gear without badges, carrying AR-15s like they'd been born holding them. Not deputies. Something else entirely. Jace's finger tightened on the .38's trigger, but Rooker spoke before he could fire. "You pull that trigger and the girl dies first, then you. Then we burn this building down with everyone in it and blame you for the whole thing." Rooker's voice carried the flat certainty of a man stating facts rather than making threats. "Or you can put the gun down real slow and we can have a conversation about what happens next." Rowan made a sound, half sob, half scream, staring at Garrett's body sprawled across her threshold, blood spreading across cheap linoleum like spilled paint. "Why?" The word tore from her throat. "Why did you? He was yours, E." "He was a liability." Rooker stepped over Garrett's corpse without looking down. "Been skimming profits, getting sloppy, leaving evidence, and after that scene at the diner this morning, he became more trouble than he was worth." He holstered his weapon with practiced ease. See, that's the difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs get emotional. Professionals understand that sometimes you gotta cut dead weight to keep the ship afloat. The 2 men in tactical gear moved into the apartment, weapons raised but not aimed yet. One cleared the bedroom. The other positioned himself by the window. Military precision. Professional kill team efficiency. Jace's mind raced. 3 dead deputies. Rooker admitting to murder. The thumb drive in his pocket containing evidence of everything. 1 .38 with 5 rounds against 3 armed men in a confined space with Rowan standing right in the line of fire. The math didn't work. "Gun. Down. Now." Rooker's hand moved back toward his holster. Jace set the .38 on the floor and kicked it away. His hand stayed visible, non-threatening, but his weight shifted forward slightly, ready to move if an opening appeared. "Smart." Rooker nodded to one of the tactical guys. "Search them." Rough hands patted Jace down, found his phone first, already turned off. Then his wallet, keys, and finally the thumb drive in his jacket's inner pocket. "Well, well," Rooker held up the small black device. "This what I think it is?" Rowan's face crumbled. Jace said nothing. Rooker smiled. "Eli was a smart kid. Too smart. Spent 2 years documenting my operation, financial transactions, recorded conversations, photos of shipments, built a real comprehensive case, even had backup copies." He pocketed the drive. "Took us 4 months to find all of them. Thought we'd gotten everything, but apparently he gave his baby sister one last insurance policy." He looked at Rowan with something almost resembling pity. "Did he tell you what happens if this information gets out? The kind of people I work for? They don't leave loose ends. They burn entire families to ash and piss on the embers." "Burus, yeasty. Then why haven't you killed me already?" Rowan's voice shook but held steady. "Why the games? Why 6 months of threats and fear? Because I was hoping you'd just disappear, move away, forget. Let your brother become another missing person statistic." Rooker shrugged. "But you didn't. You stayed. And then you brought in these motorcycle club heroes and now we got complications." "But Sam." He walked to the window, looked down at the parking lot 3 stories below. "Here's what's going to happen. We're going to make this look like a murder-suicide. Crazy biker protecting his girlfriend. Kills 3 deputies responding to a domestic disturbance. Then kills the girl. Then himself. Tragic. Violent. Case closed." "Nobody's going to believe that," Jace said. Sure they will. You got priors, PTSD from Iraq, history of violence? Rooker turned back, eyebrow raised. Yeah, I did my homework after the diner. Jace Mercer, dishonorably discharged after assaulting a superior officer. Wife died of an overdose while you were on a bender. Been drifting from town to town ever since, causing trouble wherever you land. You're the perfect suspect. Each word hit like a body shot. Jace had spent years running from his past, but apparently it ran faster. As for your biker friends, Rooker continued, they already left town. Even if they come back, we got dash cam footage of you texting their president that you were staying against his orders. He tried to call you back. You ignored him, went rogue, classic lone wolf scenario. He gestured to the bodies on the floor. These deputies tried to arrest you peacefully. You opened fire. They returned fire. Everyone died. Clean, simple, and completely believable to anyone who looks into your history. Except one problem, Jace said quietly. You just admitted to murdering your own deputies in front of witnesses. What witnesses? You two? Rooker laughed. You'll be dead in 5 minutes. And my associates here? He nodded to the tactical guys. They don't exist. No names, no badges, no fingerprints in the system. They'll be 3 states away before the crime scene techs arrive. One of the tactical guys spoke for the first time, voice flat, professional, stripped of anything resembling humanity. Sir, we should move. Gunshots will draw attention. You're right. Rooker pulled out his weapon again. Let's make this quick. Rowan grabbed Jace's arm. Her fingernails dug in hard enough to draw blood through his jacket. Please, I'm sorry. This is my fault. I should never have... Shut up. The words came out harsher than Jace intended, but he needed her quiet, needed to think, needed to find the angle that kept them breathing for 10 more seconds. His eyes moved constantly, cataloging, calculating. The window, 3 stories, probable death. The door, blocked by bodies and 2 armed men. The bedroom, dead end. Kitchen, knives, but he'd die before reaching them. The 38 on the floor, 6 feet away, might as well be 6 miles. No good options, no exits, no cavalry coming. Rooker raised his Glock, aimed at Rowan first. Nothing personal, sweetheart. You seem like a nice girl, but business is business, and... The explosion of shattering glass interrupted him. Something crashed through the apartment window, cylindrical, metal, trailing smoke. It hit the floor and started spewing thick white vapor before anyone could react. Flash bang. Jace recognized it half a second before it detonated. Just enough time to grab Rowan and turn away, shielding her body with his, squeezing his eyes shut. The world became white noise and pressure and pain, sensory overload, disorientation, time stuttering. But Jace had been flashbanged before. In Iraq, during urban combat training. He knew the drill. Wait 3 seconds. Vision comes back blurry. Hearing returns as ringing. Move before the enemy recovers faster than you. He grabbed the 38 off the floor blindly, found it by muscle memory, spun toward where Rooker had been standing. Someone else was already there. A figure in black tactical gear and a motorcycle helmet, moving through the smoke with brutal efficiency. The figure disarmed Rooker with a wrist lock that made something crack audibly. Rooker screamed. The figure drove a knee into his gut, and he went down gasping. The 2 armed men tried to respond, but they'd taken the flashbang at close range. One fired blind, bullets punching through drywall. The helmeted figure dropped low, swept his legs, and delivered a boot to his skull that made a sound like a baseball bat hitting concrete. The second man managed to raise his AR-15, but another helmeted figure crashed through the bedroom door, came in fast and hard, weapon drawn, 2-shot center mass before the man could fire. He went down and didn't get back up. The smoke started clearing. Jace's vision focused. The first helmeted figure pulled off his helmet. Tank. The second figure removed hers. Not a biker Jace recognized. A woman, late 30s, dark skin. Tactical gear that looked government issue rather than civilian. She had a face that belonged on FBI recruitment posters. Sharp, professional, absolutely done with everyone's bullshit. She looked at the bodies on the floor, then at Rooker groaning with a broken wrist, then at Jace and Rowan huddled against the wall. Special Agent Monica Reeves, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. She holstered her weapon. You two want to tell me what the hell I just walked into? Before Jace could answer, more footsteps thundered up the stairwell. Saint appeared in the doorway, followed by Diesel, Crow, and Reaper. All armed, all looking like they'd just ridden through hell to get here. Saint's eyes swept the scene. Dead bodies, smoke, Rooker on the floor, federal agent with her weapon holstered. He lowered his own gun slowly. "We got your text," he said to Jace, voice tight. "The one about evidence. Sam from the diner called us 5 minutes later, said he had a bad feeling. We turned around." He looked at the carnage. "Looks like we got here just in time." "How did you—" Jace started. Tank doubled back, kept eyes on the building from across the street, saw Rooker and his death squad enter, called it in to Agent Reeves here. Saint nodded toward the woman. "We've been coordinating with TBI for the past 6 hours, since the diner confrontation this morning. Everything's been recorded, everything's been documented, including Rooker's confession about murdering his own deputies." He held up his phone, red recording light blinking. The audio had been streaming the whole time. Rooker's face went from red to white. "That's illegal, inadmissible. You can't—" "Tennessee's a one-party consent state," Agent Reeves said flatly. "As long as one person in the conversation knows they're being recorded, it's completely legal. And since Special Agent Tank here was participating in this operation with my authorization," she pulled out handcuffs. "Sheriff Cal Rooker, you're under arrest for 3 counts of murder, conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, witness intimidation, and about 40 other charges I'm going to enjoy reading to you." She cuffed him, read him his rights. Rooker didn't resist, just stared at the floor with the hollow expression of a man watching his empire collapse in real time. More agents appeared in the doorway, actual TBI agents with badges and evidence kits and the bureaucratic efficiency of people who did this for a living. They started processing the scene, photographing bodies, collecting weapons, turning Rowan's tiny apartment into a federal crime scene. Agent Reeves pulled Jace and Rowan aside. "You two are going to need to come with me. Give statements. Walk us through everything that happened." Her expression softened slightly. "You're not under arrest, you're witnesses, but this is going to take a while." "The thumb drive," Rowan said suddenly. "Rooker took it. It has everything, all of Eli's evidence." Agent Reeves pulled out an evidence bag. Inside was the black thumb drive. "Already recovered. We'll need to verify its contents, but if it's what you say it is, this case just got a lot bigger." She looked at Jace. "Your club president's been very cooperative. Provided us with video footage from the diner, documented every threat, every instance of harassment, built a timeline that corroborates your story completely." Jace looked at Saint. The Iron Revenant's president stood by the window, arms crossed, watching TBI agents swarm the building below. His expression was unreadable. "Why?" Jace asked. "After I disobeyed orders, after I burned that bridge?" "You didn't burn shit," Saint said without looking at him. "You went off half-cocked trying to be a hero and almost got yourself killed. Again. But you're still my brother, and brothers don't leave brothers behind." He finally turned, even when those brothers are being stupid. Relief and shame hit simultaneously. Jace opened his mouth but couldn't find words. Tank clapped him on the shoulder hard enough to hurt. "You owe me a new motorcycle helmet. That window did not want to break. How did you—" "Flashbang. Military surplus. Diesel's got a guy." Tank grinned. "Also, I'm pretty sure we just committed about 15 different felonies, but Agent Reeves here seems willing to overlook that." "Let's call it aggressive cooperation with a federal investigation," Agent Reeves said dryly. "And let's never speak of the specific tactical methods employed." She gestured toward the door. "Now everyone who's not law enforcement needs to leave so we can process this scene properly." They filed out into the hallway. More agents passed them going in. The building was crawling with law enforcement now, local cops who weren't dirty, county deputies from neighboring jurisdictions, TBI agents and windbreakers. The whole apparatus of justice finally grinding into motion. Outside, the parking lot had transformed into command central. Black SUVs, unmarked sedans, crime scene vans, yellow tape everywhere. Neighbors gathered behind barriers, phones out, recording everything for social media. An ambulance sat waiting. Paramedics approached Rowan immediately, checking her for injuries, taking vitals, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders, even though she insisted she was fine. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking, and her eyes held that 1,000-yard stare Jace knew too well. He'd seen it in mirrors for years. Saint pulled him aside, away from the crowd. They stood by the Iron Revenant's motorcycles lined up like sleeping predators in the winter afternoon light. "We need to talk," Saint said quietly. "I know. You went rogue, put yourself at risk, nearly got that girl killed. I know. If Tank hadn't stayed back, if Agent Reeves hadn't already been investigating Rooker independently, if we'd been 5 minutes later," Saint trailed off, "you'd be dead right now. And I'd be explaining to your corpse why brotherhood matters. I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't cut it." Saint's voice hardened. "You got personal. Let your trauma override your judgment. Saw that girl and projected your dead wife onto her and decided saving Rowan would somehow balance the scales." He grabbed Jace's jacket. "That's not how guilt works, brother. You can't fix the past by throwing yourself at the present. You just end up destroying both." The words hit harder than any punch. Jace wanted to argue, wanted to defend his choices. But Saint was right. Had been right from the beginning. "So what now?" Jace asked. "You kicking me out of the club?" Saint was quiet for a long moment. "No. Because despite your terminal stupidity, you did the right thing. The wrong way, but still the right thing. And the club stands by brothers who stand for something even when they stand alone." He let go of Jace's jacket. "But you're going to get your head right. Therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. Because next time you might not get lucky. Next time the cavalry might not arrive. And I'm not burying another brother who died because he couldn't separate his past from his present." "Okay. Say it like you mean it. Okay, I'll get help. I'll fix my shit. I'll stop trying to die for causes that aren't mine." "Good." Saint pulled him into a rough embrace. The kind of hug that said, "I'm pissed at you, but I love you anyway. Now go check on your girl while I deal with the feds." "She's not my girl." "Yeah? Then why do you keep looking at her like she's the only thing keeping you tethered to this planet?" Jace didn't have an answer for that. He walked over to where Rowan sat on the ambulance bumper, wrapped in a blanket, staring at nothing. The paramedics had moved away to give her space. She looked smaller somehow, like the adrenaline crash had physically diminished her. "Hey," Jace said softly. She looked up. Her eyes were red but dry. "It's over. Isn't it? Really over this time?" "Yeah, it's over. Eli's still dead." "I know. And I'm still here. Without him. Without anyone." Her voice cracked. "I thought knowing who killed him would make it hurt less. But it just hurts different." Jace sat beside her on the ambulance bumper. Their shoulders touched. Two people who'd survived something they shouldn't have, trying to figure out what came next. "It'll hurt for a while," Jace said. "Maybe forever. But it'll hurt less eventually. The grief becomes something you carry instead of something that buries you." "You speaking from experience?" "Yeah." They sat in silence while the chaos continued around them. Agents processing evidence, deputies being interviewed, reporters arriving, cameras rolling, the machinery of justice and media turning personal tragedy into public spectacle. Agent Reeves approached, tablet in hand. "Miss Vale? We need your statement. And Mr. Mercer, I'll need yours as well. There's an interview room set up at the field office. Should only take a few hours." "Hours?" Rowan looked exhausted. "I know, but we need to document everything while it's fresh. Build an airtight case. Make sure nobody slips through on technicalities." Agent Reeves' expression softened. "For what it's worth? You did good. Both of you. Your brother would be proud." Rowan nodded without speaking. They rode to the TBI field office in separate vehicles. Rowan with Agent Reeves, Jace with two agents he didn't know. The Iron Revenants followed on their motorcycles, engines rumbling like distant thunder promising more storms ahead. The field office was exactly what Jace expected. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, the smell of burnt coffee and institutional disinfectant. They separated him and Rowan immediately. Standard procedure. Compare statements. Look for inconsistencies. Jace spent 4 hours in an interview room walking through everything. The diner, the confrontation with Garrett, Rowan's confession about the thumb drive, the shootout, Rooker's admission, every detail recorded, typed up, reviewed. Finally, Agent Reeves entered, looking tired but satisfied. "Your story matches Ms. Vale's, matches the physical evidence, Matches the audio recording from your club president's phone. Matches everything we've been building on Rooker for the past 8 months. Wait, she chop bought mass. 8 months? Jace sat up straighter. You've been investigating him since before Eli Vale disappeared. We had reports of corruption, but no solid evidence. Eli's investigation actually helped us. We were coordinating with him unofficially. Then he vanished, and we lost our inside source. She pulled out a chair, sat down heavily. We've been trying to build a case ever since, but Rooker's smart, covers his tracks, has judges and prosecutors on his payroll. Every time we thought we had something, it disappeared. The thumb drive, contains everything. Financial records showing Rooker's been moving $500,000 annually through shell companies. Recordings of him coordinating drug shipments with a Mexican cartel. Photos of him meeting with known distributors. It's comprehensive, damning, and combined with his confession today, Agent Reeves smiled grimly. He's done. His entire organization is done. We're executing warrants across 3 counties as we speak. Judges, lawyers, deputies, business owners. Everyone connected to this rot is getting pulled into the light. Ossia I scheiß. And the people he killed, Eli. The others? We'll investigate every death, disappearance, and suspicious suicide in Blackwater County over the past 5 years. Build murder cases. Make sure Rooker never sees daylight again. She stood. You're free to go, but we'll need you available for testimony when this goes to trial. Probably be a year or more before that happens. What about Rowan? She's giving her statement now. Should be done soon. We're offering her witness protection if she wants it, but Agent Reeves shrugged. My guess is she'll want to stay. Face this head on. She seems like the type who doesn't run. Jace knew that type. Had been that type before running became easier than standing. He waited in the lobby for another hour. The Iron Revenants had been moved to a separate waiting area, giving statements, being interviewed, their cooperation documented for the record. Finally, Rowan emerged. She looked hollowed out, exhausted beyond sleep. But there was something else in her expression, too. Something like relief. Like maybe for the first time in 6 months, she could breathe without fear crushing her lungs. Hey, she said. Hey. Agent Reeves said we're done. For now. Yeah. They stood awkwardly in the government building lobby while strangers moved around them processing the day's carnage into paperwork. So, Rowan said finally, what happens now? I don't know. I'm supposed to ride back to Denver with the club. Get my head straight. Stop trying to die for other people's causes. That sounds like something your president would say. Yeah, Saint's got opinions. Is he right? Jace thought about it. Probably. Rowan nodded slowly. I'm supposed to figure out what comes next. Agent Reeves offered witness protection, but I think I'm staying. Blackwater's my home. I'm not letting Rooker take that from me, too. That's brave. Or stupid. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. They smiled at each other. Tired, genuine smiles that acknowledged shared trauma and survival. Thank you, Rowan said, for not leaving, for staying when everyone else would have run, for... She trailed off, searching for words. For seeing me. Not just my fear. Me. You're worth seeing. Yeah? Her voice cracked. Then maybe you should stick around, just for a while. Make sure I don't fall apart now that the adrenaline's gone. Jace wanted to say yes. Wanted to stay. Wanted to keep protecting her because protecting her felt like redemption for all the people he'd failed to protect before. But Saint's words echoed. You can't fix the past by throwing yourself at the present. I can't, Jace said quietly. Not right now. Not like this. I've got too much broken inside me, and if I stay, I'll just pour all that broken onto you, make you responsible for fixing me. That's not fair. Rowan's eyes glistened, but she nodded. I understand. But maybe... Jace pulled out his phone, unlocked it, handed it to her. Put your number in. And in 6 months, when I've got my shit together, I'll call. See how you're doing. See if... He trailed off. See if there's something here worth exploring, Rowan finished. She typed her number in. 6 months. 6 months. She handed back his phone, started to walk away, stopped, turned back. Jace, that thing you're carrying, the guilt about your wife, it wasn't your fault. Addiction's a disease. You couldn't have saved her any more than you could have cured cancer with willpower. Her voice steadied. But you saved me. So maybe stop punishing yourself for the one you couldn't save and give yourself credit for the one you did. She walked away before he could respond. Jace stood in the lobby, phone in hand, staring at her contact information like it contained answers to questions he hadn't learned to ask yet. Saint appeared beside him. Ready to ride? Yeah, let's go home. They walked out into winter afternoon light. The sun was setting early, painting the sky in shades of gray and gold. The Iron Revenant stood beside their motorcycles, waiting. Tank, Diesel, Crow, Reaper, Smoke, Hammer, brothers in leather and scars and shared history. Hell of a day on, Tank said. Yeah. You good? Getting there, yeah. They mounted up, 8 engines starting in sequence, that familiar thunder rolling through Jace's chest, vibrating in his bones, reminding him he was alive. Saint led them out of the parking lot onto the highway heading west, back toward Denver, back toward whatever passed for home these days. But before they'd gone 5 miles, Saint's phone rang. He pulled over onto the shoulder. Everyone else followed suit, engines idling, waiting. Saint listened to whoever was calling. His expression shifted, hardened into something cold and dangerous. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the flat certainty of someone delivering bad news. Say that again. Pause. You're sure? Longer pause. Understood. We're on our way. He ended the call, looked at the gathered brothers. Change of plans. That was Agent Reeves. They started processing the evidence from Rooker's operation. Found something unexpected. What? Jace asked. Connections. The cartel Rooker was working with? They're not regional. They're interstate. Multi-state distribution network. And the financial records show payments going to motorcycle clubs across the South. Saint's jaw tightened. Including clubs we've done business with, clubs we've ridden with, clubs we've called allies. The implications hit like ice water. How deep does this go? Diesel asked quietly. That's what we need to find out. Because if this network's as big as it looks, and if our allies are compromised, then we've got a much bigger problem than one corrupt sheriff. Saint looked at each of them. The Iron Revenants just walked into something that goes way beyond Blackwater. And if we're not careful, it's going to burn us all. So what's the play? Tank asked. We ride back to Denver. We secure the clubhouse. We go through every deal, every alliance, every contact we've made in the past 5 years. Figure out who's clean and who's dirty. And then, Saint's expression went cold. Then we clean house. They remounted. Engines roaring. But the ride back felt different now. Not like victory. Not like justice served. Like the first mile of a much longer road into territory where allies couldn't be trusted and enemies wore familiar faces. Jace looked back once, toward Blackwater fading in the distance, toward Rowan somewhere in that town trying to rebuild a life from ashes, toward the first step of whatever came next. 6 months. He'd promised 6 months. But as the highway opened up ahead and the Iron Revenants thundered into twilight, Jace couldn't shake the feeling that 6 months might as well be 6 lifetimes. Because the war they had just finished turned out it was only the opening battle. And somewhere in the darkness ahead, something much worse than Rooker was waiting. Something that knew their names, knew their faces, knew exactly how to destroy everything they'd built. The engines roared louder, drowning out thought, drowning out fear. But not drowning out the truth neither Jace nor his brothers wanted to face. They just made enemies of people who didn't leave witnesses, who didn't play by rules, who had resources and reach and ruthlessness that made Sheriff Rooker look like a schoolyard bully. And those enemies were coming, not today, not tomorrow, but soon. The first snow started falling as they crossed the state line, white flakes disappearing into darkness, beautiful and cold, and carrying the promise of storms that would bury everything. Saint led them through the night, riding hard, pushing east toward Denver and whatever waited there. Behind them, Blackwater County lit up with federal raids. Ahead, Colorado welcomed them home with open highways and closed fists. And caught between past and future, Jace. Gravedigger Mercer rode through winter darkness, wondering if saving one waitress in one town had just condemned his entire brotherhood to something worse than death. The question wouldn't leave him, wouldn't let him rest, because in the deepest part of his gut, the part that had kept him alive through Iraq and PTSD and all the darkness after, Jace knew with absolute certainty they hadn't won. They just survived round 1, and round 2 was going to cost blood. The clubhouse wasn't burning when they arrived. It had already burned. What remained was skeletal, blackened support beams jutting toward gray morning sky like broken ribs, ash thick enough to choke on, the chemical stink of accelerant mixed with burnt leather and melted chrome. Everything the Iron Revenants had built over 15 years reduced to rubble and memory. Saint stood motionless in the parking lot, staring at the destruction. His face had gone empty. Not shocked, not grieving, just void. The kind of empty that came right before explosive violence. Tank walked the perimeter, boots crunching through debris. Professional job, multiple ignition points, thermite charges on the support columns. They wanted it all gone. No evidence. No survivors, if anyone had been inside.
"Where's Hammer?" Diesel's voice cracked. "He was supposed to be here, watching the place while we were in Tennessee." Nobody answered. Nobody wanted to say what they were all thinking.
Crow found him 20 yards away, half buried in rubble. Hammer's leather cut was scorched black, but the patches were still visible. Iron Revenants, road captain, the personal insignia he'd earned through blood. His body was twisted wrong, neck broken, dead before the fire started. They pulled him out carefully, laid him on unburned pavement. Tank closed Hammer's eyes with shaking hands. "He didn't suffer," Tank said quietly. Statement or prayer, impossible to tell. But Jace knew better. Hammer had suffered, had known the clubhouse was going to burn, had probably tried to call for help, had died alone while his brothers were 3 states away saving strangers. The guilt hit like a truck. If they hadn't gone to Blackwater, if Jace hadn't called Saint, if they'd just stayed home, "Don't!" Saint's voice cut through the spiral. He stood beside the last partially standing wall, the one with the message spray-painted in red that could have been paint but looked too much like blood. "You should have stayed in Blackwater. They did this because we helped Rowan," Jace said. "Because we exposed Rooker. Because I—" "Oh,
no." Saint turned. His eyes held something beyond rage, beyond grief, something cold and calculating and absolutely certain. "They did this because they're sending a message, telling us what happens when we interfere with their business, trying to make us scared, make us back down." He walked toward the bikes, movements controlled but barely. "Fuck that. Fuck them. We're burning their world down. We don't even know who they are," Reaper said. His voice sounded hollow, shock settling in. "Cartel? Corrupt cops? Someone else?" "Then we find out." Saint pulled out his phone, started scrolling through contacts. "Agent Reeves wanted our cooperation? She's about to get more than she bargained for. Tank, call our lawyer. Tell him we're filing RICO charges against everyone connected to Rooker. Diesel, reach out to every ally club we've got. See who answers and who goes silent. That'll tell us who's compromised. Crow, I need you at the storage unit. Pull every gun, every piece of ammunition, every tactical vest we've got stashed. We're going to war. This. Saint." Smoke spoke up, quiet, careful. The club's treasurer, always thinking numbers and logistics. "War costs money. Insurance won't cover this. Our accounts are already stretched thin after the Tennessee run. We don't have the resources to—" "Then we get them." Saint's voice went cold. "Sell bikes, liquidate investments. I don't care. Hammer died protecting this club. We owe him blood, and I'm not backing down because of money." His phone buzzed. "Incoming call. Unknown number," Saint answered. "Yeah?" Whatever voice came through the speaker made his expression shift, surprised, then suspicious, then dangerously interested. He put it on speaker. "Listening?" The voice was male, older, with the specific smoothness that came from expensive education and decades of getting what he wanted through words rather than fists. "I'm listening," Saint said. "Good. My name is Marcus Vega. You don't know me, but I know you. I know your club. I know what happened in Blackwater, and I know who burned down your clubhouse. Then start talking. Not over the phone. Too many ears. But I'm in Denver at the Petroleum Club downtown. Come alone. Bring one other person if you must. We'll discuss terms. Terms for what?
For taking down the organization that just declared war on you. The one Sheriff Rooker was working for. The one that's been operating in the shadows for 20 years, building an empire you can't even imagine. Vega paused. You want revenge? I can give you targets, locations, financial records, everything you need to burn them to the ground. But it'll cost you. Cost what? Your cooperation, your silence on certain matters, and your willingness to get your hands very, very dirty. Another pause. You've got 2 hours to decide. After that, my offer expires and you're on your own against people who make Rooker look like a mall cop. Your choice. The line went dead. Saint stared at his phone. Every biker in the parking lot watched him, waiting for the call. It's a trap, Tank said finally. Probably. We go in there, we might not come out. Probably. So what's the play? Saint looked at the burned clubhouse, at Hammer's body wrapped in someone's jacket because they hadn't brought a tarp, at his brothers standing in the wreckage of everything they'd built. We go. Me and Grave, rest of you stay here. Document everything. Get the lawyer involved. If we're not back in 3 hours, assume we're dead and contact every federal agency you can think of. I should go with you, Tank said. I'm Sergeant at Arms. Protection's my job. And if something happens, the club needs you alive to hold it together. Saint grabbed his helmet. Grave, you're with me. Why me? Because you started this. And because if it's a trap, I want someone watching my back who's got nothing left to lose. Saint swung his leg over his bike. Everyone else, lock this place down. Nobody comes in. Nobody touches anything until the feds process it. And if anyone asks about Hammer... His voice caught, just for a second. Tell them he died protecting his family. Like, protection. The ride to downtown Denver felt wrong. Too quiet. Too civilized. Morning traffic, coffee shops opening, people living normal lives while Hammer lay dead, and their clubhouse smoldered, and something vast and dark circled overhead like vultures waiting for the final collapse. The Petroleum Club sat 60 floors up in a glass tower that screamed old money and institutional power. The kind of place where oil executives made deals worth billions over drinks that cost more than Jace's motorcycle. Security stopped them at the entrance. Suits with earpieces and the careful posture of ex-military contractors who'd graduated to corporate protection. We're here to see Marcus Vega, Saint said. Names? Mason Boone and Jace Mercer. The guard spoke quietly into his radio, waited, nodded. 60th floor, elevator on the right. You'll be searched before entering the private dining area. Ishai. Right. They were searched. Thoroughly. Professionally. Weapons confiscated. Saint's knife, Jace's brass knuckles, the small .22. Diesel had slipped into Jace's boot before they left. The guards didn't comment, just cataloged everything and handed them claim tickets like a coat check. The elevator rose smooth and fast. Jace's ears popped, his pulse hammered. Beside him, Saint breathed slowly, combat breathing, the kind taught to soldiers before raids. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. The doors opened onto a private dining room, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Denver, crystal chandeliers. Table set for 3 with china and silver that belonged in museums. Marcus Vega stood by the window, mid-60s, silver hair immaculate, suit worth more than Jace's bike. He turned when they entered, smiled like greeting old friends, gestured to chairs. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. Sit, please. Saint didn't move. Who burned down my clubhouse? Direct. I appreciate that. Vega walked to the table, poured coffee from a sterling silver pot. The organization responsible calls themselves Sinaloa Norte. They're an offshoot of the Sinaloa cartel, but they've evolved beyond traditional drug trafficking, money laundering, human trafficking, political corruption. They've embedded themselves into legitimate business across the American Southwest. Sheriffs, judges, business owners, motorcycle clubs. He sipped his coffee. Sheriff Rooker was one small gear in a very large machine. When you removed him, you created a problem. We exposed a corrupt cop, Jay said. That's not a problem. That's justice. From your perspective, certainly. From theirs? Vega smiled thinly. You just cost them millions in lost revenue and exposed operational methodology they'd spent years developing. So they responded. They killed your brother, burned your home, and they're not done. The message on that wall wasn't just for you. It was for anyone else who might consider interfering. Saint finally sat, slow, controlled. What's your angle? Why do you care? Because Sinaloa Norte is bad for business. My business. Vega sat across from them. I represent a coalition of interests, legitimate businesses, law enforcement agencies, certain government contractors who've been trying to dismantle this organization for years. But they're elusive, well protected. Every time we get close, witnesses disappear or evidence vanishes or our agents end up dead. He pulled out a tablet, slid it across the table. But now you've given us an opening. Your actions in Blackwater triggered a cascade. Federal investigation, asset seizures, they're scrambling, making mistakes. And in their scrambling, they've become vulnerable. The tablet showed organizational charts, names, photos, connections spiraling out like a spider web. Jace recognized some faces, deputies from Blackwater, local business owners, a judge. Others were strangers, men in expensive suits, women with politician smiles, all connected to the same central node. Alejandro Ruiz, Vega said, pointing to a photo, born in Culiacan, came to the U.S. 20 years ago with nothing. Now he controls an operation worth $500 million annually. He's smart, ruthless, and he doesn't forgive threats to his empire. Vega's finger moved to another photo. That's his lieutenant, Carlos Mendoza, former Mexican Special Forces, handles enforcement, the man who probably killed your friend and burned your clubhouse. Then to another, Maria Santos, money laundering specialist. She's embedded in real estate across 3 states, legitimate businesses fronting dirty cash. Another photo, Judge Leonard Watts, Colorado State Supreme Court, on Ruiz's payroll for the past decade. The connections went on, dozens of names, hundreds of links, an empire built in shadow and protected by people who were supposed to enforce the law. How do you know all this? Saint asked quietly. Because I've been building this file for 8 years, gathering intelligence, documenting transactions, waiting for the right opportunity. Vega leaned back. And you gentlemen just provided it. The Iron Revenant's taking down Rooker created media attention, public interest, political pressure. Suddenly, people are asking questions. Federal agencies are coordinating investigations. The protection Ruiz enjoyed for years is crumbling. He smiled. But it's not enough. We need someone willing to hit hard, someone expendable if things go wrong, someone with nothing left to lose. You want us to be your hitmen, Jace said. I want you to be my wrecking ball. You go after Ruiz's operation. Hard, loud, public. Draw his attention. Force him to respond. While he's focused on you, my people move against his infrastructure. Arrest his lieutenants. Seize his assets. Dismantle the organization piece by piece. Saint's jaw worked. And if we refuse? Then you're on your own against an enemy with unlimited resources and no conscience. They'll kill you, kill everyone in your club, kill anyone you've ever cared about, systematically, professionally, until the Iron Revenant cease to exist. Vega's voice stayed pleasant, but his eyes went cold. Or you work with me, use my intelligence, my resources, my protection, and we burn Ruiz's world down together. What's stopping us from taking this information and going to the FBI ourselves? Saint challenged. Because half the FBI agents assigned to this case are on Ruiz's payroll. Because evidence has a way of disappearing when it threatens powerful people. Because you don't know who to trust in law enforcement anymore. Vega tapped the tablet. But I do. I've spent years vetting contacts, building relationships, creating networks that operate outside official channels. You want revenge? You want justice? You want to make sure Hammer's death means something? You need me. The silence stretched. Jace watched Saint calculate. Weigh options. Consider angles. Finally, Saint spoke. What do you get out of this? A cleaner Colorado. Fewer criminal organizations competing with legitimate interests. Political capital when Ruiz goes down. The satisfaction of removing a cancer that's been metastasizing for too long. Vega smiled. I'm not altruistic, gentlemen. I have my own reasons, but our interests align. That's enough. And when it's over, what happens to us? You go back to being a motorcycle club. Keep your heads down. Stay out of major criminal activity, and nobody looks too closely at the methods you employed during this operation. Vega stood. I'm offering you a free pass. Revenge with immunity. All I ask is your cooperation. Saint looked at Jace. Silent question. Your call too. Jace thought about Hammer, about Rowan, about Sheriff Rooker and Deputy Garrett, and everyone who'd abused power while hiding behind badges and titles. About systems designed to protect the powerful while grinding down the vulnerable. I'm in, Jace said. Grave, Saint started. I'm in. These people killed our brother, destroyed our home. They need to answer for that. And if working with this guy is how we make that happen, then that's what we do. Saint studied him for a long moment, then nodded. All right, we're in. But understand something, Vega. You double-cross us, you betray us, you use us and throw us away. I will hunt you down and I will make you suffer before you die. We clear? Perfectly? Vega extended his hand. Welcome to the war. Saint shook it. Jace followed. The deal sealed. Vega pulled out his phone, sent a text. 30 seconds later, the elevator opened and a woman emerged. Late 40s, black tactical gear, military posture. The same dead-eyed competence Jace had seen in special forces operators who'd done things they couldn't talk about. This is Catherine Price, former CIA. She'll be your handler. Targets, intelligence, logistics. She provides it all. You take orders from her like they're from me. Catherine nodded once, no smile, no warmth. We start tonight. Ruiz owns a warehouse outside Denver. Interstate 76, past the Commerce City turnoff. It's a transfer point. Drugs coming in from the south, money going back. We hit it hard. Burn his product. Take his cash. Send a message that the Iron Revenants aren't backing down. That's suicide, Saint said. He'll have it guarded. Armed. Heavily. 20 men minimum. Former cartel soldiers. Well equipped. Catherine pulled up photos on her phone. Warehouse exterior, security cameras, guard rotations. But they're not expecting an assault. They think they're untouchable. We use that arrogance against them. What about collateral damage, Jace asked. Civilians? There won't be any. The warehouse is isolated. Industrial zone. No residences within half a mile. If shooting starts, nobody innocent gets hurt. Catherine's expression stayed flat.
But
Shooting will start. These men won't surrender. They'll fight to the death because they know Ruiz executes anyone who loses his product. You need to be prepared to kill. Jace looked at Saint. The club president's face had settled into that Marine mask, the one that meant he'd already accepted casualties and moved past them to mission planning. How many men can you provide? Saint asked. None. This has to look like a biker club taking revenge. If my people are involved, it blows the operation. You're on your own, but... Catherine pulled out a duffel bag from beside the table, unzipped it. Inside were weapons. AR-15S tactical vests, flashbangs, enough firepower to start a small war. You'll be well equipped. Saint picked up one of the rifles, checked the chamber. The magazine, the optics. Professional-grade hardware, government issue. This is insane, Saint said quietly. Yes, Catherine agreed. But it's your only option. Ruiz won't stop until you're dead, unless you make him realize you're more dangerous alive than he is hunting you. You want to survive this? You need to become the predator instead of prey. Saint set down the rifle, looked at Jace. Last chance to walk away. Where would I go? Anywhere that's not here. And leave you to do this alone? That's not what brothers do. Jace picked up one of the vests, felt the weight of it. Familiar and terrible. I'm in until the end, whatever that looks like. Saint nodded slowly. Then we're doing this. He turned to Catherine. Get the gear to our storage unit. Not the clubhouse. They know about that. Secondary location. I'll text you coordinates. We'll assemble the crew, brief them on the mission, and hit the warehouse at midnight. Midnight's too early. Guards are still fresh. Wait until 0300. They'll be tired, complacent. Catherine zipped the duffel. I'll have surveillance on the target all day. Real-time intelligence on guard positions, shift changes, anything unusual. You'll have every advantage except numbers. Numbers are overrated, Saint said. 10 committed men are worth 50 who don't believe in what they're fighting for. Let's hope you're right. Catherine headed toward the elevator, stopped, looked back. One more thing. When you hit this warehouse, you can't leave witnesses. Anyone who survives will identify you, will testify, will put you in prison for decades. So you need to decide right now if you're willing to cross that line. The question hung heavy. Jace felt the weight of it settling into his bones. Killing in combat was one thing, killing in self-defense was another. But this? This was premeditated, planned. Assassination disguised as a raid. We're not murderers, Saint said carefully. No, you're soldiers. And soldiers do what's necessary to win wars. Catherine's voice stayed flat. But if you can't handle it, tell me now. I'll find someone else, someone more willing to get their hands dirty. Saint's hands clenched into fists, unclenched. We'll handle it. Catherine nodded and disappeared into the elevator. Vega poured more coffee, like they'd just discussed stock portfolios instead of organized violence. You're doing the right thing, fighting back. Most men in your position would run. Hide. Hope the storm passes. But storms like Ruiz don't pass. They destroy everything in their path. The only way through is straight ahead. Save the philosophy, Saint said. Just make sure your intel is solid. We're trusting you with our lives, and I'm trusting you with my operation. If you fail, Ruiz learns I'm moving against him. That puts everyone I care about at risk. Vega smiled. So let's make sure you don't fail. They left the Petroleum Club with claim tickets for confiscated weapons and a duffel bag full of military hardware and the knowledge that in 12 hours they'd either be heroes or corpses. The ride back felt different, heavier, like they were carrying futures that hadn't happened yet but already felt inevitable. You really want to do this? Jace asked over the wind and engine noise. Saint didn't answer for a mile. Then, Hammer deserved better. We all deserve better. And I'm tired of powerful men thinking they can hurt people without consequences. So, yeah, I want to do this, even if it kills us. It might. Then we die standing instead of running. That's got to count for something. They pulled into the clubhouse ruins. The others had remained, processing grief through action, clearing debris, building a memorial from broken bricks where Hammer had fallen. Someone had brought flowers. Someone else had left a bottle of whiskey. Small gestures against overwhelming loss. Saint gathered them. Everyone. Tank, Diesel, Crow, Reaper, Smoke. Even the prospects who'd been too new to ride to Tennessee. 16 men total. All that remained of the Iron Revenant's MC. Brothers, Saint said quietly, we've been hit. Hard. Our clubhouse is gone. Hammer's dead. And the people responsible think we're going to fold. Think we're going to run scared and let them keep operating in the shadows. He paused. They're wrong. Tonight we hit back. Hard. Public. Loud. We're going after the organization that killed our brother. And some of us might not come home. So if you're not willing to die for this club, for what we represent, now's the time to leave. No judgment, no shame, just walk away. Nobody moved. Saint nodded. Then here's the play. He laid it out. The warehouse, the guards, the timeline, the weapons Catherine would provide, the rules of engagement, everything clinical and tactical because emotion had no place in mission planning. When he finished, Tank spoke up. This is a suicide run. Probably. We're going to be outnumbered 3-1, at least. And if we survive, we'll have every law enforcement agency investigating us for a massacre. Sa. Vega says he's got that covered. We'll be protected. And you believe him? Saint's expression went cold. No, but I believe in this. In us. In standing up to people who think power makes them untouchable. So even if Vega betrays us, even if we all end up dead or in prison, at least we stood. At least we fought. His voice rose. Hammer died protecting this club. The least we can do is honor that. Make his death mean something. Show these people that the Iron Revenants don't break. We don't bow. We don't surrender. We ride until we can't ride anymore, and then we fight until we can't fight anymore, and then we die on our feet because that's what brothers do. The silence that followed felt sacred, dangerous, the kind of silence that came before men decided whether to become heroes or martyrs. Diesel was first. I'm in. Then Crow. In. Tank. In. One by one they pledged, committed, accepted whatever came next. Jace watched them and felt something shift inside his chest. Pride, maybe. Or love. Or just recognition that he'd finally found people worth dying for who actually wanted him alive. One more thing, Saint said. Grave, you're sitting this out. The words hit like a slap. What? You heard me. You're not coming tonight. The hell I'm not. You're compromised. You got personally involved in Blackwater, formed attachments, lost perspective. I need operators who can think clearly under fire, not people working through trauma by proxy. Saint's voice gentled slightly. You're my brother. I love you. But you're a liability right now. So you're staying here, guarding what's left of the clubhouse. That's an order. Rage flooded through Jace. Hot, overwhelming. You don't get to sideline me. I'm your president. I absolutely get to sideline you. Saint stepped closer. And deep down, you know I'm right. You've been chasing redemption since your wife died, trying to save everyone because you couldn't save her. But tonight's not about saving people. It's about controlled violence against a superior force. And I can't have you hesitating because you're thinking about Rowan or your wife or whatever ghosts you're carrying. So you're out. Final. Jace wanted to argue, wanted to throw a punch, wanted to rage against the truth he didn't want to acknowledge. But Saint was right. Had been right from the beginning. Jace's judgment was compromised. His trauma was interfering, and in combat, that got people killed. Fine, Jace said through gritted teeth. I'll stay. Guard the ruins. Wave you off when you leave for your suicide mission. Good. Saint gripped his shoulder. And if we don't come back, you're president. You rebuild. You keep this club alive. Understand? You're coming back. Maybe. But if we don't, someone needs to remember who we were, what we stood for. Make sure the story doesn't end with Ruiz winning. He walked away before Jace could respond. The hours crawled. They prepared in silence, loading magazines, checking gear, writing letters to people they'd never see again if this went wrong. The prospects brought food nobody ate. Someone turned on music, but it felt wrong, so they turned it off again. Jace sat apart, watching, feeling useless. Helpless. Reduced to spectator while his brothers prepared for war. His phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. He opened it. I heard about the clubhouse. About Hammer. I'm so sorry. Be careful. R. Rowan. Somehow she'd heard. Somehow she cared enough to reach out across 3 states in a canyon of trauma. Jace typed back. I'm staying behind. They won't let me fight. Her response came fast. Good. You've done enough. Survive. Please, that's the plan. In 6 months, when you call, I want you alive to make that call. Jace stared at the message. 6 months. It felt like 6 lifetimes from where he stood now. I'll call. I promise. He pocketed his phone and looked up to find Tank watching him. Your girl? Tank asked. She's not... Yeah, not your girl. You keep saying that. Tank sat down beside him, grunting as his knees popped. You know Saint's right, keeping you here. I know. Good, because you're a good fighter, but you fight angry. And angry gets people killed when they should be thinking instead of feeling. I'm not angry. You're furious. Have been since Blackwater. Since before Blackwater. Since your wife died and you decided surviving was the same as punishment. Tank pulled out a cigarette, lit it, exhaled smoke into cold air. But here's what I learned in Fallujah. Rage makes you fast, but it makes you stupid. And stupid men die young. So maybe Saint's doing you a favor. Keeping you alive long enough to figure out that living's not a punishment. It's the whole point. When did you become philosophical? When I watched 18 friends die because they let emotion override tactics. Tank stood, joints popping again. Stay here, guard the ruins. And when we get back, if we get back, you buy first round. Deal? Deal. Tank walked away to join the others. They were mounting up now, engines starting in sequence. That familiar thunder building. Saint approached one last time. You good? No, but I'll manage. That's all anyone can do. Saint pulled him into a brief, fierce hug. See you on the other side, brother. Don't be dramatic. You'll be back by dawn. Sure. Saint's smile didn't reach his eyes. By dawn. The iron revenants rolled out at 2 a.m. 16 motorcycles disappearing into darkness, leaving Jace alone with the ruins and the ghosts, and the terrible certainty that some of them wouldn't return. He walked the perimeter, checked doors that no longer existed, watched for threats in shadows that held only ash. The memorial for Hammer flickered with candles someone had lit, small flames against overwhelming dark. Jace's phone buzzed again. Not Rowan this time. Catherine Price. They're in position. Radio silence until insertion. If you don't hear from me in 2 hours, contact Agent Reeves at TBI. Tell her everything. Understood, Jace typed back. He sat on his motorcycle, engine off, just sitting, and waited. Time became elastic. Minutes felt like hours. His imagination supplied worst-case scenarios on repeat. The warehouse exploding. His brothers cut down by automatic weapons fire. Saint bleeding out in some industrial parking lot, while Jace sat uselessly 3 miles away. At 3:17 a.m., his phone rang. Catherine. Status. Jace answered. Insertion successful. No resistance yet. They're placing charges on the product. Should be ready to... Gunfire erupted through the phone. Automatic. Close range. Screaming. Contact! Someone yelled in the background. East entrance. Multiple hostiles. More gunfire. An explosion. Someone screaming about being hit. Then the line went dead. Jace tried calling back. No answer. Tried Saint. No answer. Tank, Diesel, Crow. Every number he had. Nothing. Just silence where his brothers should be. He was already on his bike, already moving before conscious thought kicked in. Engine roaring to life, tearing out of the parking lot toward Interstate 76, toward the warehouse, toward whatever hell his brothers had ridden into. The highway swallowed him. Darkness, speed, wind screaming past. He pushed the bike harder than safe, leaning into curves, gambling that dying in a crash was better than arriving too late to matter. The industrial zone appeared. Warehouses and shipping containers and empty lots. He killed his lights, coasted on engine sound alone, following the glow on the horizon. Fire. The warehouse was burning, massive, uncontrolled, black smoke rising against stars. But that wasn't what made Jace's blood freeze. It was the motorcycles. The Iron Revenant's bikes scattered across the parking lot, some upright, some fallen, all abandoned, and the bodies. Jace counted 4 from the entrance. Dark shapes sprawled on pavement. Leather cuts. His brothers. He pulled his bike behind a shipping container. Drew the small backup weapon Diesel had slipped him. A snub-nosed .38 that wouldn't stop what he was about to face, but was better than nothing. Movement near the warehouse entrance. Armed men. Professional? Organized. Hurting someone? No. Multiple someones. The surviving Iron Revenants. On their knees, hands behind heads, surrounded by at least 30 men carrying assault rifles. And standing in front of them, backlit by flames, was a figure Jace recognized from the photos Catherine had shown them. Alejandro Ruiz. He walked down the line of kneeling bikers slowly, casual, like reviewing soldiers at inspection. He stopped in front of Saint, Mason Boone, the president, the man who thought he could challenge me. Ruiz's voice carried across the parking lot, smooth, educated, utterly devoid of mercy. Did you really think attacking my warehouse would end anyway but this? Saint didn't answer. His face was bloody, one eye swollen shut, but his expression held nothing but defiance. Ruiz smiled. No last words? No pleas for mercy? He pulled out a pistol, pressed it against Saint's forehead. Then die knowing you accomplished nothing. Your brother is still dead. Your clubhouse is still destroyed. And the Iron Revenants end tonight with all of you kneeling in the dirt like the dogs you are. Jace's heart hammered. The .38 felt like a toy in his hands. 30 armed men against one biker with 5 bullets. The math didn't work. Could never work. But Saint was his brother. These men were his family. And Jace had already watched too many people die while he stood uselessly by. Not this time. He stepped out from behind the shipping container, raised the .38, aimed at Ruiz. "Step away from them," Jace said. His voice barely carried, but it was enough. Every head turned. Every weapon moved to target him. 30 red laser sights painting his chest. Ruiz laughed. "And who are you?" "Jace Mercer, Iron Revenants, and the man who's giving you one chance to let my brothers go." "Or what? You'll shoot me with that pea shooter? My men will cut you down before your body hits the ground." Ruiz's smile widened. "But I admire the courage. Stupid, suicidal, but courageous." He pressed the gun harder against Saint's skull. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to watch me execute your president. Then my men are going to kill the rest of your club. Then they're going to kill you. Slowly. And tomorrow, the Iron Revenants will be nothing but a memory and a police report about a gang war gone wrong." Jace's finger tightened on the trigger. One shot. That's all he'd get. Kill Ruiz and die. Or watch Saint die and spend his last seconds knowing he'd failed again. The choice crystallized. Not a choice at all, really. Never had been. Jace started to squeeze, and the night exploded with sirens. Red and blue lights flooded the parking lot, vehicles screaming in from every direction. Federal vehicles, TBI, DEA, FBI, dozens of them. 100 agents pouring out with weapons drawn and voices amplified through bullhorns. "Federal agents, drop your weapons! On the ground now!" Chaos erupted. Ruiz's men scattered. Some dropped weapons and surrendered. Others tried to fight and were cut down by precision rifle fire from FBI sharpshooters. The parking lot became a war zone. Ruiz turned away from Saint, searching for escape, found Catherine Price standing 10 feet away with her weapon aimed at his center mass. "Alejandro Ruiz," Catherine said calmly, "you're under arrest. Federal racketeering charges. Murder. Drug trafficking. The list goes on. Get on the ground. Now!" For a moment, Jace thought Ruiz would fight, would go out shooting rather than surrender. But he just smiled, dropped his weapon, raised his hands. "You think you've won? You have no idea how deep this goes, how many people I own. I'll be free in a month, and you—" He looked at the Iron Revenants still kneeling. "You'll all be dead before trial." "We'll see," Catherine said. She cuffed him personally, tight enough to hurt. Then agents swarmed, securing prisoners, processing the scene. Saint struggled to his feet. Tank helped him. They were battered, bleeding, but alive. All of them. Somehow. Impossibly. Still breathing. Agent Monica Reeves appeared from one of the vehicles. She walked straight to Saint, face furious. "You want to explain what the hell you idiots were thinking? Assaulting a cartel warehouse? We've been building this case for months, and you almost—" "We gave you Ruiz," Saint interrupted. "On a platter, surrounded by evidence and witnesses and no way to slip through legal technicalities. You're welcome. Quais." Reeves looked like she wanted to hit him, but she didn't, just shook her head. "You're all under arrest, too. The charges." She trailed off. "We'll figure it out later. For now, get medical attention. You look like hell." Jace walked toward his brothers, everyone converging, checking each other for injuries. Tank had taken a bullet through his shoulder but was still standing. Diesel's leg was bleeding. Crow had burns on his arms from the fire, but they were alive. All 16 of them, somehow. Saint gripped Jace's shoulder. "Thought I told you to stay at the clubhouse." "Yeah, well, I don't take orders well." Noticed. Saint's one good eye held something like pride. "Thanks for coming anyway. Even if it was stupid and could have gotten you killed. What are brothers for?" They stood together in the parking lot surrounded by fire and federal agents and the burning wreckage of Ruiz's empire. The dawn was breaking, gray light creeping across the horizon. It should have felt like victory. But Jace couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the eye of the storm. That Ruiz's smile had held knowledge they didn't possess. That the real war hadn't started yet. Marcus Vega's office looked like an execution chamber when the police let Saint and Jace through the yellow tape. Blood had pooled across the mahogany desk, dripped onto imported carpet, Painted abstract patterns across leather chairs that cost more than most people's cars. The message carved into the desk was crude but effective. Deep gouges that had splintered wood and left no doubt about intent. "They're coming for all of you. Single shot," the detective explained. Older guy, weathered face, eyes that had seen too many crime scenes. Back of the head, professional, no struggle. No, security cameras were disabled 20 minutes before the kill. Whoever did this knew the building, knew his schedule, knew exactly how to get in and out invisible. "Ruiz is in custody," Saint said quietly. "How does he order a hit from federal lockup?" "Because Ruiz isn't the top of the food chain. Never was." The detective pulled out his phone, showed them a photo. "We found this in Vega's desk drawer, hidden compartment behind the bottom panel." The photo showed Vega shaking hands with Judge Leonard Watts, both smiling, both clearly comfortable with each other in a way that suggested years of familiarity. "Vega and Watts were partners," the detective continued. "Business associates going back 15 years, real estate deals, investment portfolios. They were using Ruiz's operation to launder money through legitimate businesses. Vega wasn't trying to bring down the cartel. He was trying to eliminate competition and take over the distribution network himself." The revelation hit like cold water. Jace felt his stomach drop. "He played us. Completely. Used your club as muscle to remove Ruiz. Probably planned to let you take the fall once the feds closed in. But something went wrong. Maybe Ruiz figured out Vega's betrayal. Maybe Watts got nervous about exposure. Either way, the detective gestured at the blood. "This is cleanup, eliminating loose ends." Saint's face had gone empty, the dangerous empty that came before explosive violence. "Where's Watts now?" "Unknown. He didn't show up for court this morning. Chambers are empty, house is empty. Car's still in his garage, but the man's gone. Either he's running or..." The detective trailed off. "Or he's coming for us," Jace finished. "That'd be my guess. You boys exposed a pipeline worth hundreds of millions annually, made powerful people vulnerable, destroyed carefully constructed networks. And they're not going to just walk away from that." The detective closed his phone. "My professional advice? Get out of Denver tonight. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Stay gone until we find Watts and everyone connected to this mess." "Running's not our style," Saint said. "Neither is dying stupid. But here we are." The detective pulled out a business card, handed it to Saint. "My personal number. You see anything suspicious, and I mean anything, you call me directly. Don't go through dispatch. Don't trust anyone in official channels. Until we know how deep this corruption goes, assume everyone's compromised. They left Vega's office building into cold morning sunlight that felt wrong somehow. Too bright. Too normal. People walking past on sidewalks, going to jobs, living lives, oblivious to the fact that powerful men were hunting bikers like animals. The Iron Revenants had gathered at the secondary location, a storage facility on the outskirts of Denver where they'd stashed gear and weapons over the years. Not a clubhouse. Just a large industrial space with concrete floors and metal walls and the hollow echo that came from too much empty space. Everyone looked like hell. Tank's shoulder was wrapped in bandages. Diesel limped. Crow's arms were covered in burn dressings. The ones who weren't physically wounded carried the psychological damage. 1,000-yard stares, trembling hands, the specific exhaustion that came from surviving something you shouldn't have survived. Hammer's absence felt like a missing tooth, the space where he should have been standing, the jokes he would have made, the reliability that had defined him. Saint stood in the center of the space, surrounded by brothers who'd followed him into hell and somehow come back. When he spoke, his voice carried weight. Vega's dead. Watts is missing. And we're targets. High-value ones. The people behind this operation have unlimited resources and no conscience. They will hunt us. They will find us. And they will kill us unless we do something about it. He paused, letting the reality sink in. So here's what we're going to do. We split up, pairs, different directions. Make ourselves hard targets to hit all at once. Stay mobile. Stay armed. Stay in contact through burner phones only. No social media. No credit cards. Cash only. We disappear until law enforcement closes this case or until we're forced to make a stand. How long? Reaper asked. His voice was hoarse from smoke inhalation. However long it takes. Could be weeks. Could be months. Could be never if they don't find Watts. Saint's expression hardened. I won't lie to you. This is going to be hard. Some of us might not make it. But we're still brothers. We're still family. And family doesn't abandon each other when things get dark. Rice. What about the club? Smoke asked. The Iron Revenants. If we scatter, if we go underground, what happens to everything we built? It survives because we survive. The club isn't a building or a patch or a location. It's us, the men in this room. Long as we're breathing, the Iron Revenants exist. Saint looked at each of them. Now pair up. Grab gear. Be ready to roll in 30 minutes. They moved with practiced efficiency. Tank paired with Diesel, Crow with Reaper, Smoke with one of the prospects, everyone finding their road partner, gathering weapons and cash and supplies. Jace found himself standing alone, watching, the odd man out. Saint approached. You're with me. You sure? I'm the one who got us into this, called you to Blackwater, started this whole chain of events. Exactly, which means you're invested, and I need someone invested. Saint pulled out a map, spread it on a workbench. We're going back to Tennessee, to Blackwater. It's the one place they won't expect us to go. Oh? Why would we go back there? Because Rowan Vale is still there, and if Watts is smart, and he is, he's going to figure out the same thing we did. That you got personal, that you care about her, that hurting her is the fastest way to draw you out. Saint's finger tapped Blackwater on the map. So we get there first. We protect her. And we wait for Watts to make his move. Huh? That's using her as bait. That's keeping her alive. You think she's safe if we're not there? If Watts sends professionals to extract information about your whereabouts? Saint folded the map. This isn't ideal, but it's the play we've got. Jace wanted to argue, wanted to find another way. But Saint was right. Rowan had become a vulnerability the moment Jace stayed in Blackwater. And vulnerabilities got exploited. All right, bees, Jace said. When do we leave? Now, det goes. They geared up. Weapons, cash, fake IDs Saint had kept for emergencies. The kind of preparation that suggested he'd always known one day they might need to disappear. The ride to Tennessee took 14 hours. They avoided interstates when possible, stuck to back roads, stopped only for gas at places without security cameras. Two men on motorcycles pushing east through winter landscape that looked cold and dead and indifferent to human suffering. They barely spoke. The engine noise and wind made conversation difficult anyway, but the silence between them felt comfortable. The silence of brothers who'd bled together and didn't need words to communicate. Blackwater appeared on the horizon just after midnight. The town looked the same. Empty streets, closed shops, that specific small town quiet that felt either peaceful or menacing depending on what you brought to it. Rosie's diner glowed through the dark, open 24 hours, a constant in a world that kept shifting under Jace's feet. They parked behind the building. Sam's sedan was in the lot, and another car, Rowan's duct-taped sedan with the back window still held together by determination and hope. She was working. Of course she was. Where else would she be? This diner had become her anchor, the one stable thing in a life that had tried repeatedly to destroy her. They walked in through the back entrance. Sam stood at the grill, spatula in hand, and when he saw them, his eyes went wide. Jesus Christ, you boys look like you went to war. We did, Saint said. Is Rowan here? Front counter, closing shift, only customer left about an hour ago. Sam set down the spatula. Whatever trouble you're bringing back to my diner, I need to know about it. That girl's been through enough. We're not bringing trouble, Jay said. We're trying to stop it from finding her. That's not as reassuring as you think, but Sam gestured toward the dining area. Go talk to her. I'll lock the front door. Last thing we need is civilians wandering into whatever this is. Rowan stood behind the counter, counting register money, when they emerged from the kitchen. She looked up at the sound of footsteps, and the cash slipped from her fingers, scattering across Formica. Jace? Her voice came out disbelieving. Then her eyes shifted to Saint, to the weapons poorly concealed under their jackets, to the road-worn exhaustion and barely contained violence radiating off both of them. What happened? It's complicated, Jace started. Then simplify it. She walked around the counter, arms crossed. Defensive posture. The armor of someone who'd learned that men showing up unannounced usually meant bad news. You disappeared for 3 days. Didn't call. Didn't text. Then you show up looking like you've been through hell. So simplify it for me. What's going on? Dear soul, Saint spoke before Jace could. The people your brother was investigating, they're bigger than we thought. Connected to judges, politicians, business owners. We took down one part of the network, but the rest is still operating, and they're coming after anyone who threatened them. He paused. That includes you. Rowan went pale. I didn't do anything. I just gave you evidence, which makes you a witness. And witnesses don't survive long in organizations like this. Saint pulled out a chair, gestured for her to sit. We're here to protect you. Keep you safe until law enforcement closes the case. For how long? However long it takes. I can't just stop my life. I have rent, bills, a job. You have a target on your back, Saint interrupted. Not harsh, just factual. And we can either face that together, or you can pretend you're safe until someone kicks down your door in the middle of the night. Your choice. She looked at Jace. This is real? Not some paranoid biker overreaction? It's real, Jace said quietly. Marcus Vega, the man who was helping us, was murdered 3 days ago. Judge Watts disappeared. The organization's cleaning house, eliminating anyone who knows too much. And you know everything. Your brother's evidence, our investigation, all of it. Rowan sat down slowly, like her legs had stopped working. I thought it was over. After Rooker got arrested, after you took down Ruiz, I thought... She trailed off. I thought I could finally sleep without checking the locks 5 times. Without jumping at every car that drives past. Without waking up terrified that today's the day they come for me. It will be over, Jace said. Eventually. But not yet. She laughed bitterly. Story of my life. Eventually. Always eventually. Never now. Never safe right now. Her hands shook. I'm so tired. I'm so fucking tired of being scared. As Jace knelt beside her chair, met her eyes. I know. And I'm sorry we brought this to your door, but we're not leaving. Not until you're safe. I promise. Your promises don't mean much when people keep dying. Oh, boy, I'm on sick. The words hit hard but fair. Jace had made promises before, to his wife, to brothers who hadn't come home. Promises had become cheap currency in his life. You're right, Jace admitted. Promises are just words. So instead of promising, I'm just going to stay, right here, between you and whatever's coming. That work better? People? What? Rowan studied him, searching for lies or false hope or masculine ego disguised as protection. Finding only exhaustion and determination and the specific kind of loyalty that came from shared trauma. Okay, she said finally. What do you need from me? Your apartment's not safe, Saint said. Too many access points. Too exposed. You got anywhere else you can stay? Family? Friends? Sam's offered before, but I don't want to put him at risk. Everyone else... She shrugged. Blackwater's not big on trust. People keep to themselves. Then you stay with us, Saint decided. We'll set up in a defensible location. Work in shifts. One person on watch at all times. Nobody gets to you without going through us first. Where? Sam spoke from the kitchen doorway. My place. House on the edge of town. 2 stories. Good sight lines. Only 1 road in. He wiped his hands on his apron. I got room. And I got a shotgun. If these boys are standing between Rowan and trouble, least I can do is give them a place to stand. Sam, no, Rowan started. Baby girl, I already lost 1 young person to these bastards when Eli disappeared. I'm not losing you too. So you're staying with me. These bikers are staying with me. And anyone who doesn't like it can go to hell. Sam's voice softened. Besides, you think I've been sleeping easy since Rooker got arrested, knowing his people are still out there? At least this way, I'm doing something besides waiting to be another victim. What? The decision was made. They closed the diner early, Sam posting a handwritten sign about family emergency. The caravan to his house, a modest 2-story with white siding and a porch that had seen better decades but still stood solid. Inside, the house smelled like coffee and old books, and the specific comfort that came from a life lived deliberately. Photos covered the walls. Sam's family, his late wife, pictures of a younger Rowan and Eli smiling in happier times. Guest rooms upstairs, Sam said. 2 bedrooms. Rowan takes one. You boys can figure out the other or sleep in shifts down here. I'll take the couch. You'll take your own bedroom, Saint corrected. We're here to protect people, not kick old men out of their beds. I'll take first watch. Grave, get some sleep. You look like death. Jace wanted to argue, but he was running on fumes. Adrenaline had carried him this far, but it was burning out fast. He climbed the stairs, found the second guest room, and collapsed on top of the quilt without bothering to remove his boots. Sleep came hard and brought nightmares. His wife's face, Hammer's broken body, Vega's blood spreading across expensive carpet. Rowan screaming while he stood frozen, unable to move, unable to help, unable to do anything but watch as everything he cared about burned. He woke to someone shaking his shoulder. Rowan. She stood beside the bed, fully dressed, expression concerned. You were yelling, she said quietly. Thought you should know before you woke the whole house. Jace sat up, disoriented. Gray light filtered through curtains. Morning. He'd slept maybe 4 hours, but it felt like 4 minutes. Sorry, nightmares. About what? Everything. He rubbed his face. Iraq, my wife, all the people I couldn't save. Take your pick. Rowan sat on the edge of the bed, not close enough to crowd him, but near enough to offer comfort through proximity. Your friend downstairs, Saint, he told me about your wife, about the overdose. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. Is that why you stayed in Blackwater, when everyone else left? Because you saw me and saw a chance at redemption? Jace thought about lying, about offering some noble explanation, but Rowan had earned honesty. Maybe. Probably. I don't know anymore. I just knew I couldn't walk away. Couldn't watch another person suffer alone while I did nothing. He looked at her. Does that make me a hero or just a guy with a savior complex trying to outrun his own guilt? Can it be both? Rowan's voice held gentle understanding. Maybe you needed to save me as much as I needed saving. Maybe that's what healing looks like sometimes. 2 broken people helping each other stand long enough to figure out how to walk again. You don't seem broken. I'm very good at hiding it, had years of practice. She stood, walked to the window, looked out at empty street and gray morning. After Eli disappeared, I spent months pretending I was fine. Went to work, paid bills, smiled at customers, all while dying inside. Eventually, the pretending became real. Or real enough. I'm not sure there's a difference. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, we're both just going through motions, surviving, calling it living because the alternative is admitting we're already ghosts. She turned back to him. You came back to protect me. But who protects you, Jace? Who stands between you and your demons? He didn't have an answer. Downstairs, Saint called up. Grave, we got movement. Jace was on his feet immediately, weapon drawn, descending stairs 3 at a time. Rowan followed. They found Saint and Sam at the front window, both armed, both watching the street. A black SUV sat parked 2 houses down. Tinted windows. Engine idling. Professional surveillance posture. How long? Jace asked. 10 minutes. Hasn't moved. Hasn't turned off. Just sitting there. Saint's voice was calm, but his hand rested on his weapon. Could be coincidence. Could be reconnaissance. In a town this size, no such thing as coincidence. Sam chambered around in his shotgun. You boys want to wait and see or take initiative? Before anyone could answer, the SUV's passenger door opened. A woman emerged, late 50s, professional clothing. She walked towards Sam's house with confident stride, no weapon visible, hands in clear view. I know her, Saint said suddenly. Federal prosecutor. I've seen her photo in case files.
Chawashi, The woman reached the porch, knocked 3 times. Polite, non-threatening. Saint opened the door with one hand on his concealed weapon. Can I help you? Mason Boone? Jace Mercer? The woman's voice carried authority without aggression. My name is Helen Kraus. I'm the assistant U.S. attorney handling the Ruiz case. May I come in? We need to talk. They let her in but stayed armed, didn't offer coffee or small talk, just watched while she settled into Sam's living room armchair and opened a briefcase. Judge Leonard Watts was found dead 6 hours ago, Kraus said without preamble. Suicide. Single gunshot to the head in a motel outside Knoxville. He left a confession. 20 pages detailing his involvement with Sinaloa Norte, his partnership with Marcus Vega, the corruption network spanning 3 states. Names, dates, financial transactions, everything. Relief and suspicion hit simultaneously. Why suicide? Saint asked. Because he knew we were closing in. Because his co-conspirators had started eliminating witnesses and he realized he was next on the list. Because sometimes guilty men choose death over prison. Kraus pulled out documents. His confession corroborates everything you provided, everything Eli Vale documented. Between Watt's statement, Vega's files, Rooker's testimony, and Ruiz's organization records, we have enough to dismantle the entire operation. Arrests are happening as we speak. Judges, sheriffs, business owners, politicians, the whole network. And we're just supposed to believe this? Jace challenged. Supposed to trust that it's over? That we're safe now? You're never completely safe. That's the reality of exposing powerful people. Kraus met his eyes. But the immediate threat is neutralized. The organization's command structure is destroyed. The financial pipeline is shut down. What remains are scattered remnants fighting over scraps. They're not coming after witnesses anymore. They're too busy trying to survive. She pulled out more papers. Immunity agreements, witness protection offers, official statements declaring the Iron Revenant's cooperation with federal investigations. In exchange for your testimony at trial, the U.S. Attorney's Office is prepared to grant immunity for any actions taken during your investigation of this criminal organization. That includes the warehouse assault, the confrontation with Ruiz, everything. You walk away clean. What's the catch? Saint asked. The catch is you testify, publicly, in open court. You put your names and faces on record saying you witnessed these crimes, these corruptions. You become public figures associated with taking down a major criminal organization. Kraus leaned forward. That comes with risks, media attention, people who will call you heroes, others who will call you criminals. Your lives won't be private anymore, but you'll be alive, and you'll be free. Saint looked at Jace. Silent communication. Your call too. Jace thought about Hammer, about Eli, about everyone who died because corruption had festered unchecked for too long, about the choice between safety through silence or justice through exposure. We'll testify, Jace said. Good. Kraus stood, left the immunity agreements on the coffee table. Trials start in 6 months. We'll be in touch with specifics. Until then, you're free to resume your lives. The federal government thanks you for your service and cooperation. She left as professionally as she'd arrived. The SUV pulled away, disappeared into morning traffic. The house stayed silent for a long moment. Then Sam laughed, genuine, surprised, the kind of laughter that came from surviving something you'd accepted would kill you. Well, I'll be damned, Sam said. We actually won. Did we? Rowan's voice was quiet. Eli's still dead. Hammer's still dead. Vega and Watts are dead. A lot of death to call winning. But a lot of justice too, Saint countered. Rooker's in prison, Ruiz is in prison, an entire corruption network dismantled. Families that won't have to live in fear anymore. Towns that can start healing. That counts for something. Does it count for the nightmares? Rowan asked. Does it count for the trauma? Does it count for everything we lost getting here? Nobody had an answer for that. Jace walked outside onto the porch. Cold morning air bit his lungs. Somewhere in town, life was continuing. People waking up, going to work, not knowing how close their world had come to permanent darkness. Rowan joined him. They stood side by side, not touching, just existing in the same space. What now? she asked. I don't know. Rebuild, I guess. Figure out what normal looks like after everything. Jace looked at her. You gonna stay in Blackwater? Bam. Maybe. Probably. It's my home. Leaving feels like letting them win, like admitting Eli died for nothing. She wrapped her arms around herself. But staying means walking past places where you used to be. Living with absence. I don't know which is worse. Neither. Both. There's no good option when you're grieving. Just choices that hurt different amounts. They stood quiet for a while, watching the sun rise higher, burning through gray clouds, turning the world from shadow to light slowly enough that you couldn't pinpoint the exact moment darkness became day. 6 months, Rowan said finally. You said you'd call in 6 months. See if there was something here worth exploring. Yeah. It's been 3 weeks. I know. So what do we do? Wait 5.5 months? Pretend these 3 weeks didn't happen? Pretend we didn't survive something that should have killed us? Jace turned to look at her. Really look. Not the bruised waitress from that first night. Not the victim needing rescue. Just Rowan, scarred and tired and determined to keep standing despite everything. What do you want to do? Jace asked. I want to stop waiting for eventually. I want to stop putting life on hold until it's safe to live. I want... She paused, searching for words. I want to try. Right now. Not in 6 months when you've got your shit together and I've finished grieving and we're both magically healed. Just try. Messy and broken and honest. That's not fair to you. I'm still carrying too much. So am I. So is everyone. Nobody's fixed. Nobody's whole. We're all just broken pieces trying to fit together in ways that hurt less than being alone. Rowan's voice strengthened. So stop protecting me from your trauma. Stop deciding what I can handle. Let me choose. And I'm choosing this. You. Us. Whatever that looks like. Yeah. Jace wanted to argue, wanted to list all the reasons this was a bad idea. But looking at Rowan, at her determination, her courage, her refusal to let fear dictate her choices, he couldn't find the words. Okay, he said simply. Let's try. She smiled, real and genuine and beautiful in its imperfection. Yeah? Yeah. Saint appeared in the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but we need to head back to Denver, club business. The others are regrouping and we need to be there. How long? Jace asked. Few weeks probably. Rebuilding the clubhouse, processing everything that happened, dealing with lawyers and federal agencies. Saint looked between them, reading the situation immediately. But Grave, if you need to stay, no, I'll come. The club needs me. You need me. Jace turned to Rowan. But I'll be back, for real this time. Not in 6 months. Sooner. How much sooner? Soon as I can. Soon as the club's stable and the legal stuff's handled and I've done right by my brothers. He touched her hand. Brief. Careful. Is that okay? It's a start. They left Blackwater 3 hours later. Saint and Jace on their motorcycles, engines rumbling, heading west toward Denver and whatever came next. In the rearview mirror, Rowan stood on Sam's porch, watching them go. Not waving, just standing, a constant in a world that kept shifting. The ride back felt different than the ride out. Lighter somehow, like they'd been carrying weight they hadn't noticed until it was gone. You good? Saint asked during a gas stop outside St. Louis. Getting there. She seems solid. Rowan. She is. Good. You deserve solid. Saint capped his gas tank. For what it's worth, I was wrong before. About you being compromised. About your judgment being clouded. You saw someone who needed help and you helped her. That's not a weakness. That's what separates us from the people we fight. Saint giving compliments? Must be the apocalypse. Shut up. But Saint smiled. Just don't make me regret saying it by doing something stupid. No promises. Denver welcomed them back with gray skies and cold wind, and the charred remains of their clubhouse still smoldering in memory, if not reality. The other brothers had gathered at the secondary location. All alive, all accounted for, battered but breathing. They spent 2 weeks rebuilding, not the physical clubhouse, that was ash and insurance claims, but the brotherhood,
The bonds that had been tested and bent but not broken. They held a memorial for Hammer, invited his family, said words that felt inadequate but necessary. Let grief flow through them instead of around them. Jace found himself changing, slowly, incrementally. The nightmares came less frequently. The guilt loosened its grip. He started sleeping more than 4 hours. Started eating regularly. Started believing that maybe survival and living weren't mutually exclusive. He called Rowan twice a week. Sometimes they talked for hours. Sometimes just minutes. But the connection held, strengthened, became something neither of them could quite name but both recognized as important. 3 weeks after leaving Blackwater, Jace found Saint in the new temporary clubhouse, a rented warehouse space that lacked character but provided security. I need to go back, Jace said. Saint didn't look up from the paperwork he was reviewing. To Tennessee? Yeah. For how long? I don't know, maybe a while, maybe permanently. Depends on... Jace trailed off. Depends on whether you and Rowan figure out what you're building. Saint set down his pen. You asking permission or informing me? Bit of both. Then here's my answer. Go. The club's stable. We're not facing immediate threats, and you've earned the right to choose your own path. Saint stood, walked around the desk. But you're still Iron Revenants, still my brother. That doesn't change because you're in Tennessee instead of Colorado, understand? Sanchu. Yet. Good. Then ride safe. Call if you need anything. And Grave? Saint gripped his shoulder. Be happy. You've earned that too. Jace left the next morning, solo ride. Just him and his motorcycle and 1,000 miles of highway between where he'd been and where he was going. The winter landscape scrolled past. Brown fields, empty trees, towns that looked identical from the road. But somewhere ahead, spring was waiting. Not here yet, but coming. Inevitable as sunrise. He rolled into Blackwater just after midnight. The diner glowed like a beacon. Rowan stood behind the counter, pouring coffee for late-night truckers, moving with practiced efficiency. She hadn't seen him yet. Jace walked in. The bell above the door chimed. She looked up. Her expression shifted. Surprise to recognition to joy so genuine it hurt to witness. She set down the coffee pot and walked around the counter, and they met in the middle of the diner floor. You came back, she said. Told you I would. You're early. Couldn't wait. She laughed, surprised and delighted and relieved. So, what now? You're here. I'm here. We're both messes. Where do we even start? Coffee, Jace said. We start with coffee. They sat in the same booth where everything had begun. Rowan poured, they drank. And slowly, carefully, like two people learning to walk after long illness, they started talking. Not about trauma or death or corruption, just small things, favorite movies, terrible first jobs, dreams they'd had before life got complicated. Sam emerged from the kitchen, took one look at them, and smiled. You kids gonna sit there all night? Probably, Rowan said. Then I'm going home. Lock up when you leave. Sam pulled off his apron. And Jace, welcome back. Try not to get my diner shot up this time. No promises. Sam left. The truckers finished their coffee and rolled out. Soon it was just Jace and Rowan in the empty diner with fluorescent lights humming overhead and old highway. Outside, and the weight of everything they'd survived sitting between them like a third person at the table. I'm scared, Rowan admitted quietly, of trying this, of getting attached, of losing someone else I care about. Me too. But you're here anyway. So are you. Yeah. She reached across the table, took his hand. So I guess we're doing this. Being scared together, figuring it out as we go. Sounds about right. They sat there until dawn broke across Blackwater. Two broken people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided that maybe, just maybe, that was enough to build something real. Outside, in the parking lot, Jace's motorcycle waited, still capable of carrying him away. Back to Denver, back to the club, back to the life he'd known. But he didn't move, because for the first time since his wife died, since Iraq, since all the trauma that had shaped him into someone defined by survival rather than living, Jace Mercer felt something approaching peace. Not perfect peace. Not the absence of pain or fear or doubt, but the quiet understanding that he'd found people worth staying for, worth fighting for, worth building a life around. The Iron Revenants would always be his family. That brotherhood was etched into his bones, permanent as the scars he carried. But Rowan was something else, something new, a chance at a different kind of family, the kind built through choice rather than crisis, through patience rather than adrenaline, through the slow, difficult work of healing alongside someone who understood darkness because they'd walked through it too. 3 months passed. Jace split his time between Blackwater and Denver, maintaining connection to both worlds. He helped Sam renovate the diner, new equipment, fresh paint, the kind of improvements that said this place was worth investing in. He rode back to Colorado monthly for church meetings, to check on brothers, to maintain the bonds that mattered. Rowan started writing stories about Eli, about Blackwater, about corruption and courage and the cost of standing up. A journalist contacted her about turning Eli's investigation into a book. She said yes. They moved slowly. No rushing, no pressure. Just two people learning each other's rhythms, boundaries, triggers. Learning that healing wasn't linear. That bad days would come without warning. That love, if that's what this was becoming, meant showing up anyway. The trials started in late spring. Jason Rowan testified. Saint and the Iron Revenants testified. Agent Reeves testified. The evidence mounted until it became insurmountable. Rooker got 30 years. Ruiz got life without parole. Dozens of others got sentences ranging from probation to decades behind bars. The media called them heroes. The Iron Revenants who took down a cartel. The brave waitress who honored her brother's memory. The stories got simplified, sanitized, turned into narratives that fit newspaper columns and evening news segments. But the people who'd actually lived it knew the truth was messier, knew that heroes were just scared people who couldn't figure out how to walk away, knew that justice was expensive and incomplete and left scars that never fully healed. Still, it was something. It was enough. 1 year after that first night in the diner, Jace stood in a garage bay he'd rented on the outskirts of Blackwater. The sign above the door read Mercer Customs in simple letters. Motorcycle repair and restoration. Legal. Legitimate. A life built from something other than violence and survival. Rowan appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against afternoon sun. She'd cut her hair shorter, gained weight back that stress had stripped away, smiled more easily. "You coming home?" she asked. "Dinner's ready." Home. The word still felt foreign, but less so every time she used it. They'd moved in together 3 months earlier, a small house on the edge of town with a porch and a yard and a mortgage that terrified both of them in the best way. 5 minutes, Jace said. "Just finishing this carburetor." "You said that an hour ago?" "This time I mean it." She smiled. "I've heard that before, too." But she walked over, wrapped her arms around him from behind, rested her chin on his shoulder. "Thank you." "For what?" "For staying, for not running when things got hard, for choosing this, us." She paused. "For seeing me as more than something broken that needed fixing." Jace set down his tools, turned in her arms. "You were never broken, just bent. There's a difference. We're both bent then, and somehow we're still standing." "Yeah, somehow." They stood there in the garage while afternoon light slanted through open doors, and somewhere in the distance a train whistle blew, that lonely sound of something passing through without stopping. But this time Jace didn't feel the urge to follow it. Didn't need to run toward the next town, the next distraction, the next attempt to outrun his own demons. This time he stayed, because he'd finally learned what Saint had tried to teach him from the beginning. That brotherhood wasn't about being perfect, wasn't about never falling down. It was about showing up, about standing beside people even when, especially when, standing was hard. And standing here, in this garage, in this town, beside this woman who'd somehow become his reason for believing tomorrow might be better than yesterday. That was worth more than all the miles he'd ridden running from the past. That evening, after dinner, after dishes, after comfortable silence shared on a couch with a television playing something neither of them watched, Jace's phone rang. "Saint. You sitting down?" Saint's voice carried weight. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Actually, something's very right. The club voted, unanimous. We want you to come back to Denver, not to ride, not to fight, but to open a second shop. Mercer Customs West. We provide the startup capital. You provide the expertise. Give brothers coming out of the life a legitimate way to earn. Give prospects who want straight work an option. Saint paused. What do you say? Jace looked at Rowan. She'd been listening, reading his expression. He mouthed the question. She nodded. I say yes, Jace said, but I'm keeping the shop here in Blackwater too, and I'm only in Denver part-time. I've got people here who need me. Fair enough, long as you're still family. Always. Good. Then welcome home, brother. Again. Saint laughed. Seems like you keep finding ways to come home even when you're trying to leave. Maybe I finally figured out home isn't a place. It's people. And I've got people both places now. Damn, when did you get philosophical? Blame Rowan. She's a bad influence. They talked details, logistics, timelines. Then Saint said something that hit different than everything else. Hammer would be proud of you, of how you turned all this darkness into something that helps people. He always said the best revenge against death is living well. Jace's throat tightened. Yeah, he did say that. So keep saying it, keep living it. And when you're back in Denver, first drink's on me. We'll toast to Hammer and Eli and everyone we lost. Then we'll toast to everyone we saved, including ourselves. Deal. The call ended. Rowan moved closer on the couch, tucked herself against his side. You okay? Yeah, I really am. That's new. It is. You think it'll last? I don't know. Probably some days are better than others. Probably I'll still have nightmares. Probably there'll be moments I want to run. He kissed the top of her head. But I'll have reasons to stay. That's got to count for something. It counts for everything. Was. Outside, the night settled over Blackwater. Quiet. Peaceful. The kind of town where people locked their doors out of habit rather than fear. Where corruption had been burned out like infection from a wound. Where healing was happening slowly but surely in the way communities heal when given the chance. And somewhere on the edge of town, in a small house with a porch and a future neither of its occupants had expected to survive long enough to see, two people who'd learned that broken didn't mean destroyed fell asleep tangled together. Believing, maybe for the first time in their lives, that tomorrow would come and they'd be there to meet it. Together. Standing. Still scarred but no longer bleeding. Still haunted but no longer hunted. Still imperfect but no longer alone. And in the distance, the sound of motorcycle engines rolled through the darkness like thunder carrying a promise that brothers watched from highways and garage bays and clubhouses scattered across state lines, that family extended beyond blood, and that some bonds forged in darkness became stronger in light. The iron revenants rode on. The survivors healed. Survivors, and in a small Tennessee town that had almost drowned in corruption, justice, imperfect and incomplete and hard-won, finally learned to sleep through the night without waking to screams. If you made it this far, you witnessed something real, not a fairy tale, not a story where good guys win clean and bad guys lose completely, but a story about broken people finding each other in the dark and deciding that maybe, just maybe, they were worth fighting for. Hit that like button if this story moved you. Drop a comment about which moment hit hardest, the diner standoff, the warehouse raid, Rowan's confession, or that final choice to stay instead of run. And tell me what city you're watching from, because stories like this, they're universal. They happen everywhere. In every town where courage faces corruption and refuses to blink first. This is the emotional protector biker universe, where outlaws become guardians, where the broken protect the breaking, where family means standing between danger and the people you love, even when, especially when the odds say you should run. Ride safe, brothers and sisters. And remember, you're never alone as long as someone's willing to stand beside you when darkness comes calling.